Okay, welcome to the performance and scrutiny in place in corporate, 9th of December. This scrutiny meeting is being conducted on a hybrid basis in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021, which will operate alongside the Council's standing orders. The Council's standing orders and code of conduct apply at all times during this virtual meeting in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. I remind members that this meeting is being live streamed to the public. Please can those attending switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you're not speaking to ensure there's no unnecessary background noise. And I also remind members to ensure their chat function is switched on and to use that facility to indicate to me when they wish to speak on a particular item. Please do not speak until I invite you to do so. Remember to unmute your microphone and switch your camera on. A recorded version of this meeting will be uploaded for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes. Thank you. Any apologies?
Councillor Hanks, Bright and Sweetchair.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any declarations of interest at this stage?
Yes, Chair. If I could just register, I'm the chair of a local community group that has received SPF funding this year, and I'm also a representative of South Wales Fire and Rescue Service.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Pym. And a declaration of interest from me, because I work in housing within the city, and some of that work sometimes comes into contact with the council housing team. But as this is a decision-making body, I'm happy to carry on and to continue to share the meeting. Okay, thank you. So, service plan mid-year reviews, if I can. So first up, we've got Environment and Public Protection. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Excuse me. So we've got two cabinet members joining us at the table. I think it probably crosses a couple of portfolios. I don't know if either of the cabinet members wants to do an introduction or just hand over to Paul and Sylvia. It's entirely up to you.
I'll just mention a couple of things.
Of course, yeah.
Thanks,
Councillor Posey.
I think we're all aware of the work that's gone on at Tredegar Park this year with the play area and the splash park, which are definitely on much warmer days than it is today. Also, people are probably aware of the work on the Monobrett Canal, which and more is planned there. Maybe not everyone is aware of the new tip shop, and I haven't had a chance to visit yet, but I understand that they've had a soft launch and the take-ins have been really good, and of course I'm always keen to support the use of recycling. The climate change team has been doing great work, not least on Christmas video, but on more serious matters, of course we've had a program installing heat pumps and solar panels, and I think we've made great progress with the EV charging points and different trials this year as well, which we've done really well on. So, but a lot of good work has been done.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Druitt. Do you want to add
Nothing to add to that.
No, that's great. Thank you. Paul, did you want to come in at all? Or have
Yeah, well,
yeah.
To be honest, not that much more to add. I think the media review and report is quite comprehensive, and it shows it gives quite a lot of detail about delivery against all of our actions. That, as we would have seen, they also majorly green, because there's been progress and a lot of milestones and big things have been delivered in the first part of the year, and there's some indication there about what's to come on the second part as well. So really, I have to say, really thank you to the teams. I have small teams that they've been working tirelessly to try and deliver, and there's been like really big things on the waste front with the implementation of the regulations on businesses, with the big projects, the Tredegar Park, the canal, all the work done by the climate change team and the public protection teams have been wonderfully, well in terms of all the, inspection and interventions that they've been working on this year. So I think it's just a matter of inviting comments and questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sylvia. That's great. Over to the committee then, in terms of any questions to Sylvia or cabinet members and colleagues for environment and public protection. Councillor Thomas.
First thing I wanted to raise that isn't mentioned in your report at all. I was on a meeting the other day, and there was a comment by a councillor from Torvine who was talking about larch disease, large trees in that area. Now, is it something? Does it jump? Is there a risk to the trees in Newport? This larch disease. He didn't mention ash dieback, because we've had a huge amount of work and expenditure on. But this larch, is that something we're planning for or we're monitoring for?
It's one of the diseases. So
Yeah.
ash dieback's mentioned because we've got a very high quantity of ash.
Yeah,
and
we've spent a lot on it.
And they're all in the
Trying
all
to make a
places.
smaller
yeah,
quantity of ash.
But also ash dieback is a pretty big sweeping across. So
Yeah.
it's as it will hit us if we've got ash trees.
Yeah.
There's loads of other smaller scale tree diseases that the team is constantly dealing with.
So we're not
And they
worried
monitor-
about
Well,
larch.
they monitor cyclically, but as you see, the spend on trees over the last 4 years has gone up as high, and that's
Yes.
one of the contributing factors.
Yes.
Ash dieback gets the headlines because across the UK it's a big
Yes.
problem, not smaller scale things. So,
Right.
I don't know how many large trees we've got, but
Yeah.
it's less than ash, and I think they're in lots of places.
Well, a prettier tree though.
That's it.
Well,
They're very pretty.
I have nightmares about ash trees now.
Any other questions, Kate?
Yes, several.
Yeah, no, go on, you've got the floor.
Prosecutions for fly tipping. How
Yes.
many? And what do we know the demographics, the type of people who are the culprits on this one?
Well, I wouldn't be able to give you specifics right now, and it's something you're interested. I may be able to ask the team to provide some insights, like generic information about the types of people. But I'd say, it's widespread. I don't think we have the one single type of people who will be caught. What I can tell you is that there's been a significant increase in the action delivered by the teams, and last year's stats we show as the number one local authority in terms of action delivered, and we did a number of prosecutions. We issued a number of fines, which is significantly higher than what other local authorities
Right, okay.
had in
That's
place.
good news if it works.
But if we look at this year's actions in the first half of the year, I have some stats here because I knew. We have. The increase has been in the thousand, no, in the hundreds percent.
Right, okay.
Last year, the whole year, we issued 22 fixed penalty notices for waste offences and another 13 for fly tipping in the whole year, which, as I say, was higher than other counties in Wales. This year, so far, up until September, we had issued 193 for waste offences and another 61 for fly
Gosh.
tipping.
Gosh, that's a significant increase.
And in terms of prosecutions, we had 8 last year. So far this year, we've had 18.
Right, okay. I mean, you'll be aware in my ward, we have got habitual offenders who, I was rather hoping maybe the appointment of these officers as education officers would help matters, but, the same thing is still going on.
Well, we know that while general public, sometimes they just need a bit of guidance and support to rectify some issues, you have a core element that they may be few in number, but their actions.
It isn't casual, it's in the same place every time.
Yeah.
It's from the same residents in the same patch of housing.
And I think our teams are trying to work with you and
Thank
then to try and get to outcome.
I think it's fair to say, so investment and changes in that team over the last year, with the joining of the public protection team forming Sylvie's
Right,
team
okay,
now
so
has
that
helped.
sounds-
Yes.
I
helpful.
think much more focused on
Yeah.
on outputs. So they've been very successful. But it, as I think, I don't know how many members attended the seminar,
seminar.
that Saran and Step ran a few weeks back. It was, but going into the detail there, it's still very bureaucratic and very tight. Very was a lot of work, and a lot of proof is required for us to probe this. But they're working as hard as they can on it. They won't get everyone, but they're doing well. We're redoubling our efforts on that because we know it's a priority in terms of who is the most likely offender. So we're from the quantum of waste we have and from the numbers we report, we know that it's for want of a generic title, white band man.
Right.
That's the majority of what our
Right.
white instances are. And that's where the issues of the last few years and other cases.
Yes, I'm aware of that. The ones I'm thinking of aren't like that.
No, I
But
yeah,
it's-
I know. You
But there is,
you asked what's the most likely profile,
Yeah.
and that does seem to be ours.
yes, so it's organised and it's probably for money. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Right.
Just on, can I pick up a question on the
yes,
same
of
point?
course.
If that's right.
Sorry.
Just on like, do you want to go in first? I was just going to sort of ask, has the resource in your team increased? In the numbers to increase, or has the number of incidents increased? So are you just being more robust and taking out the previously we didn't take because you've got an additional resource, or is it because the incidents are right
They're catching more people, but incidents wobble around and the quantum, and in terms of how we report, we probably over-report because we class anything that's out of place but that helps us then with information, because the temptation is just to report, oh, is this definitely, but it helps to build up a profile of where stuff is, and that is helping. They also changed some of the systems and the way that they're dealing with things, so it's dedicated resource just focused on that. So I think it's a little bit of resource increase, a big increase in efficiency and effectiveness, and it being a focus on the service area over the last year. That's the main drivers, I think. But it's again we've said this got a lot of times. It is really challenging, and a lot of effort is needed. Residents will report, I seen someone, and that's really helpful. We use that, record that, but then we need statements. Now it's really difficult, isn't it? For you don't want to give a statement against someone who you're concerned for yourself. So it's understandable why the public won't do that. But then that doesn't stack up as enough evidence, and then so on we go back around in a circle. But it's good that they're making progress, and we want to be doing publicising those results more and publicising the people we do catch more.
I just think we've had some notable successes with prosecutions, haven't they? Including, quite a high profile, but we've led with other councils. Somebody who was claiming to be a licensed remover of rubbish, and it turned out in the end that he wasn't licensed, and he had quite a large number of cases. I don't know if we're allowed to say any more about that one, but it was quite.
That's gone through the court process now, isn't it?
We have the final sentence.
That's not what it is.
Okay. And the other thing that the offices has been doing is been working more with landlords. Because one of the more troublesome areas is where we've got very transient population, and they work with somebody who's renting a flat or a room, and then they move on, and then you've got to go and work with the next one, and then they move on. But they've been working more with the landlords who've got,
which is really good, and that does happen.
It is
particularly in
really
the city
good.
centre. Yeah.
and I walked down Stowe Hill and reported that again.
All right,
this morning. Because it's a bit of a. And it looks like somebody's been doing some decorating. They're empty paint pots there.
Yes.
Well, that's not normal domestic rubbish. It's probably a landlord giving his premises a lick of paint and then just checking it out on the street when it's just not acceptable. So yeah, so I reported that when it was.
And that
Thank you
was
for
going
that.
to be my follow-up really to what you said. So it's the sort of, do we understand the difference? You know, hypothetically, I'm asking, do I as well? That's not reason. Do we understand the difference between sort of waste problems and households disposing of waste or not disposing of waste correctly, and then fly tipping? So, and is it the same thing? Is it just households that are? Because one of the issues we're having a lot, you probably know, is people just with the 3 weekly bin collections to increase, just taking their backpacks and putting them next to a bin.
And
You know,
that's,
we're having a huge problem with that. To me, and that's it's fly tipping technically,
That is-
isn't it? But you know,
that is quite typical because you
Yeah.
are consciously moving the waste from your house and you're dumping
Yeah.
it somewhere else. And that's clearly fly tipping. And we are concentrating our efforts on that now because I think to an extent that comes in some cases from lack of understanding about the rules. And I think some engagement with people is needed, but we will be finding people who do that if we find evidence. And, you know, we now have some stickers, I don't know if you've seen them, but we
I've seen the yellow stickers. Yeah,
stickers in bins to really warn people that
Yeah.
we would be finding them if that keeps happening.
So there's you know there's cameras that we reference. They're not every bit all the time. So you know they're one, and it'd still be said some disengagement, but there's no excuse for it.
Yeah.
So you know we don't tolerate it, but it's a lot of work. A lot of work to get over the line, and it is frustrating. You know, we'll take someone to court, and you know it won't be my discretion. You know, expenses that stuff, and they go through all of it. It costs us lots of money, lots of time, resource, and they'll get £400 fine, which we could have issued them on the spot with. So that's the system as well. Does not help us.
Yeah.
Have you found with HMOs and Newport houses being converted into residents, you know, flats and the like, that there ain't enough bin provision for these blocks, flats, and it's overflowing?
Well, I think HMOs, if anything, sometimes have more capacity than anybody because you have individual people living there that are not related to each other, and all of them have their own entitlement. So that's really something that we take into account. And as a cabinet member said, there's been a lot of engagement with landlords because you know there needs to be clarity around what the rules are in terms of managing the waste with people. I mean, HMOs are a good example because there are people that sometimes live there very short periods of time. So you need that constant reminder and reiteration
Absolutely.
when there's like a change in tenants.
Absolutely.
And you know,
And the landlords to be responsible.
exactly. Yes.
So is this being brought in and liaising with the planning?
So waste are always consulted on planning, and there's planning requirements for waste in any development.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be, there doesn't seem to be quite enough bin storage in these places now. I know one, for instance, now that they've got to put them environmental. It just isn't enough capacity. It's added on.
Yeah.
Again, take more tenants. And literally, I've got photographs here. It's overflowing outside of the bin storage area.
You want to send the specific,
Yes.
the planning will deal with that, but if there's plan issues, that will get picked up with teams.
Yes.
It could be that they've been designated certain space and they use it for something else, but send the specifics through. And,
I'm just saying generally, throughout the city, there's lots more places being turned into multi-occupation now.
I don't think you can really sort of generalise and go, all flats, you know,
Yes.
because I know of flats that are very well serviced and tidy.
It's a minority, isn't it?
You know, it just depends where you are really. You know, I know some premises are well sort of different, some aren't.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I don't think you can generalise on it.
I'm just making sure we're covered when we pass this planning.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Storage is adequate.
It's an important point when it comes to planning. Although when I did sit on planning, I can remember quite a big development that nearly fell. Oh, this is going to fail on the people. So, but yeah, it's good to kind of like plan and prepare at that stage. You're right.
it's all, you know, it's also really difficult when you're in flats because of the, you know, all the different sort of segregations of waste. Well, you know, we manage apartments, obviously, my day job, and people just bring right back down because they can't be bothered to kind of separate the, you know, plastics into one. And so you've got the bin stores, particularly if they're community bin stores with all the separate bins. But, you know, most people just walk down with the black bag and plug it in the normal waste instead of actually standing and segregating.
Yes, about
That's a real
accountability,
challenge
yeah.
about sort of building management, is that, you know, we do lots of sort of education with, you know, it's pretty obvious in the bin stores which bins are which, there's big signs on them, and people are just too lazy sometimes to kind of separate them
I
out.
just think the
Yeah.
key on that is to segregate it in the beginning. You know,
Mm.
you see lots of kitchen designs now,
Yeah.
and you pull out a kitchen drawer and it's got, you know, one for plastic, one for cardboard. It's not separated at the end because, yeah, that's no fun at all, is it?
No.
But separate it as you go,
Yeah.
I think. And so, you know, maybe in your flats, you can think about making provision. You know, if you drop the paper in the paper one as you go, who wants to sort through later?
We
You know,
provide
as you
the
go,
ones
I
that
think.
when the door opens and they're full bins, so we do provide them. We take them up to some kind of storage. It's just, you know, it is a challenge, and I know that sort of lots. It's one that we're probably. It is really, really difficult to kind of to sort of, you know, to encourage people to sort of do the right thing. And I know that there's lots of work from your team in terms of getting out and talking to people. The new leaflets that came out when the flats have just changed to 350 wins were really informative.
Oh,
You know, and I thought they were useful, and we sort of I was fortunate enough we had them as councillors, so I was able to pass them on. I don't know if they went out to landlords, for example. We didn't get them as landlords. I was in the fortunate position as a councillor to sort of use them and share them. I don't know if other landlords did. You said you were working.
Well, we did engage with all
Yeah.
the main, you know, social landlords, but,
Yeah.
you know, with the private ones, it's a bit more difficult to have contact sometimes.
Yeah,
I think that's an area though, discuss that some of we need to perhaps look into more.
Yes,
We tend to know the landlords if we've had to find them,
yes.
but that's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
that's not a myth. You wanna, it's better have a
and
reason.
you know, rent smart wells will have that data. You know.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, rent
Yeah, yeah.
should take
And-
greater accountability.
But but I think the landlords and the management companies. Bit more, I think, because you're right, it's getting that information out, isn't it?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I think it's more up for next year.
Is it your question on this specific point? I just want to see if anybody wants to come in on the same point, if I can.
Of course, yeah, I'm just going to spread to the great diversity of this portfolio. You've heard of burials.
Are there any sort of more questions on sort of fly tipping and sort of waste?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, Paul comes up in.
It's a question for Paul. I think he's already touched on it. It's CCTV and fly tipping offenders. Are we using mobile CCTV to catch these offenders?
Yeah, so we do that, and we'll be doing more of that as we go forward. So we do deploy them about bins. They can't be deployed everywhere, and also they're not like a panacea really, because you know, if a vehicle is pulling up, it's quite easy to get the reg and you go through that route. If the men in balaclavas pull up in a dark night, it's much use
Yeah.
chalk teeth in it. So it doesn't solve all things. However, you know, we've had some tremendous success with our CCTV cameras. I think everyone remembers a few years ago, the road to nowhere, and how we managed to shut that down. That was a very extensive operation, cameras, and we got a huge amount of evidence that we needed in order to deal with a particular group of individuals, and we're having repeated successes with that. And you know, I think it's anything we want to. Hopefully, the press will make more of a thing about what we are having success. But again, often it's frustrating because you end up going through all that, spending thousands really, get a £400 fine, and then it's a bit demoralising for officers. So, so we're doing that. We're doing more of it. We'll keep increasing that, and we're not going to tell you where they are.
Did you need any on this topic? Do you need any more additional equipment to make your job easier?
I think the problem is not just having the cameras in themselves, which, you know, it does help if you have plenty of cameras and they are like good technology. It's more about two things really. One is if a location is suitable for camera deployment, which is not always the case, and it needs an assessment in advance. And second, the use of the cameras is quite resource intense because they need to be put there, and then someone has to go through all the images, filter through them, get information that is relevant, and then follow on that. So really, you know, it's a balance really on the potential outcome and you know, how useful the cameras are and whether you have the resource really. If I had, I don't know, 100 cameras, I may struggle really to go through all those images and process them in a timely manner. So.
Okay,
Do you
thanks, Sylvia.
evidence of perhaps footage from private individuals' cameras?
Not on its own, it would need to come together with a statement.
Right, okay.
And
So
that's why we normally struggle with people being willing to sign a statement and
Yeah.
knowing that, although it is quite unlikely, potentially, if it ends up in a prosecution, they may be called to attend court. And as I say, while it is quite unlikely, just the possibility that that can happen make people really change their minds normally.
Any other questions on this specific area, this plan in terms of waste, or can we pass back to Councillor Thomas to make some of the points? And mindful, you've got your hand up, Councillor Pym, but I'll let Councillor Thomas finish on her points first, if that's okay.
I think he's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, he's gone, that's fine. No, it's fine. They can't meet the size, that's fine. He hasn't got his hand up anymore.
I'm just, reference is made to this, into the burials, the area
Yes.
of burials, and I just wondered, we know that the majority of councils across the whole country, with few exceptions, possibly some in Scotland and the Outer Hebrides and places, won't feel that they have a sufficient burial space. I wondered if there was any evidence from, say, maybe during COVID times, that people were having to change their wishes away from burial to other ways of disposing of their bodies, like cremation. Have we been able to service demand?
We've been able to satisfy demand.
Right, okay.
I think current demand isn't the issue. Also, if we roll back a few years ago, one of the challenges for us satisfying demand was space-based burials, where there's a time. So you've got systems in place for that now.
Right.
So but if you need to bury someone tomorrow, there's space, space there.
But
it's more on the medium-term horizon of this challenge.
Yes.
But I mean, I'm sure that our residents are pleased that this is being considered by the council, because it's a lot less convenient if no plans have been placed by anybody. Right. Thank you. And then I had a question that probably it would be raised by the 50+ Forum if they were here, but they have recently raised this issue of we have wonderful sports facilities over at the velodrome, which obviously I realise is it would have been provided by the council in the first place, wouldn't it? But now is with Newport Live, but they were bemoaning the fact that it's very difficult for people to use those facilities because the bus doesn't actually go in there. There are bus services that go down towards Spitty, the retail park, but it's quite a walk from a bus stop to actually get to the velodrome, and they believe that it's putting some people perhaps with more limited mobility. And also, obviously, a lot of people who use the centre over there will be on exercise referral programmes. And so, they've got a very real interest in keeping fit and, getting to these places to do that. So I don't know whether they.
I was going to say, if you're talking about bus connectivity, that's more for Stephen. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of one of these. I'm thinking the recreation side of things.
So the Newport Life stuff will come under Tracy, but I think this pertinent point is Steve, because I know some work's actually been done on.
All right.
So pick up infrastructure. Yeah, that's great. Anything else, Kate?
Oh, I'm sorry about
No,
that.
that's actually come back. Oh,
I just found what to do with waste. There was a rather a bumper hiccup in communication with private landlords and private rental properties within the city when the system changed from. I gather what used to happen was they put their rubbish in a bag and it would be collected daily.
Mm-hmm.
Have we got more of a plan now for making sure that it's a smooth process? Because one of my constituents got in touch because she'd been threatened with prosecution for fly tipping and she had no awareness that the system was changing.
Can you send me specifics around
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Because there are
I'll
some
find the emails
some
that
bulk
they sent
collections,
to
and there are different
Yeah.
frequencies depending on the area.
Right.
And we try getting some changes in the city centre, but I don't think that's within your ward. So I will need to double check that.
Right,
You can send me an email
Okay.
with the details. I'll
Yeah,
look
this
into
was
it.
on the high street.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Cleverly, you've been waiting patiently for a while.
Thank you, Chair. My question was on the parks. Let me find it because I wrote it down. The well done for the parks that have been updated. My question is just on Kimberley Park, where we had where it was flooded like a swimming pool with all the rain we had last week or whatever. All the park equipment have been removed. Can I ask if is it in the process of being updated, or was it for health and safety reasons?
No, Kimberley Park, we are in the process of renovating that play area. And I think just the flooding happened at the same moment in time. But, you know, this is one of the play areas that we are improving. So we should have new equipment installed to Kimberley Park.
That's excellent. Thank you.
We'll send you an update
Yes.
on it.
Yes, we look forward to seeing it. Thank you very much.
Any other questions on this service area from anybody else? Or if I may, I'll try and articulate one for Councillor Matthew Pym, because he's not here. We did talk about it before. So talked about consultation timescales for some of the work at Newport Park, which, if I recall correctly, was, and please help me out, anybody else that was at the time, was around sort of some of the proposals for, I think, planting and some of the stuff, and he was going to say that they sort of been included in the consultation after the decision had been made, so there wasn't sort of an opportunity to sort of to feed into that. So apologies, I'm only articulating on his behalf.
Okay.
Perhaps it may be worth you dropping him a line afterwards.
What I'll do is contact him afterwards to see exactly what his query was, because, you know, we've been doing consultation on a number of elements, different play areas, and I know there was consultation around some improvements in Beechwood Park. But, you know, the normal process is that we consult with people to gather their views and their, you know, preferences to inform the decision.
Yeah.
So.
And that, like I have from my own personal experience, worked really well on the parks that I've been involved in.
Yeah.
So I'm only articulating on behalf of Councillor Pym. So if you could reach out.
I'll get in touch with him, yes.
Thank you very much. And I just had a couple of sort of questions on here. So some of the sort of percentages, for example, sort of page 8 on your report, 17 on the overall report, we've got some sort of actions at 15% there to be completed by March. I just wondered whether they, you know, there seems to be a lot of work still to go on that, and could they be amber rather than green?
To be honest, I think these two that are linked to HR processes are difficult to measure in terms of, you know, if there's been progress, there's been conversations, should we just go with, oh, because it's half of the year, we're going to say it's a 50%. But for me, for instance, in the workforce training and development, there's been a lot of conversations, but only like 1 or 2 training actions delivered. So for me, it was like, oh, let's not say it's a 50%, because although there's some prep that has been done, we haven't actually delivered as I should have like to see. And that's reflected in the lower percentage, but I still think it's progressing well. So that's why it's a green track status.
So I suppose the key thing is it's still on chart. If it is, then that's probably this wrong. But if it's just still going to be on target, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I did have one other one. So bear with me. On page, and it was on the targets, the percentage of the KPIs. And it was environmental health planning. It was sort of.
We have a couple of numbers there.
The explanation was fine on the first one.
Yes.
The second one, percentage of businesses that were either compliant or brought into compliance.
Yeah, I think
My
the
question was compliance with
on meeting the statutory requirements. So you go into and you carry out an inspection to a premise, and it turns out that they need to make a number of improvements to comply with the relevant regulations. So if it's like a food safety inspection, for instance, and they told they need to make some changes in the kitchen to make it like comply with the standard, that they're given some time to implement those measures, and they
Right,
get inspected again to ensure that they have actually made improvements.
okay, got you. So this is more the sort of food rate.
Yeah, food standard. It's in the environment health. That's the large
Yeah.
one that sees. There's other bits of bobs that
Yes.
regulate low scale health and safety, etc. That's the one everyone sees with the 5 on the window or not. So
Yeah.
someone may have a 3, but they've got some interactions. There will be those, and there's follow-ups to those.
And I think with this one, they show it slightly under 4 months, and the comment makes reference to sometimes you go to a company and they go, you need to improve these, and they're given, say, I don't know, 2 months. Some things may be more difficult to address, and perhaps by the end of the 2 months it was not implemented, but there's been an agreement to extend the period to give you more time to really implement the changes. So if you are strict, they will fail. Maybe your percentage is not being included in this 94%, but in 2 months' time, for the next reporting period, they will be okay. So that's why we think that the performance indicator.
I think there is an issue there in what that means to someone who's not living in this world.
Yeah,
all the
perhaps
time.
we should,
I think
The
we
point
want
that
to
you was-
it.
yeah,
rewarded to make it more
Yeah.
meaningful.
Total sense to people in the team, but
Yes.
general public,
Yeah.
maybe not. So let's have a think about what we can redescribe that.
Yes.
Feel away.
and if that is related to food.
Not just, but that's one of the
Yeah.
big ones.
So, because the measure on the next page, top of the next page is sort of what's the difference between the two, I would have said. And so maybe we need to sort of, as you say, look at the sort of wording and be clear what we're sort of reporting on.
100%.
So someone can be broadly compliant, but they have actions outstanding. So
Yeah,
there's different levels. If someone's a 0, then you shut them down, isn't it? Like if someone's fine, broadly compliant, but there's still work we need to do. So, but yeah, let's have a look at the descriptions again. Very management, I think.
Yes.
and then I think the measure for me on them is, have we done all the inspections that we should have done? And I'm not sure that comes out in here. And there's a couple of 100% on different things for bi-monthly cleanliness of highways and relevant land and stuff like that. With a target, but actually, if we're doing those inspections, have we got the committee would like to know, I guess, or I would, have we got the resource to deliver them, or have we actually already done 40% of the inspections we should have done this year? So 95% of the 40% are compliant, rather than.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've got that to where I meant. Yeah. So it'd be good just to sort of review them and a more report. Okay.
Yes, and that's something that we think about the indicator to ensure that it's meaningful and the description is clear. And perhaps that's something that we can either capture with the indicator, or if not, provide information somewhere in the document so that where we are with the things.
And one final point, if I can, just around the sort of staff check-ins.
Yes.
As you know, the committee sort of raise fairly regular, and it appears to be going in the wrong direction.
Yes, it did, and I have to say that we started the year a bit better, because this figure that you see there is the latest bi-monthly one. We were at that lowest kind of September time, and it was a mixture of people being on holiday and missing on some of the bookings, some people being off sick, and that means that a number of people, either above or below, may not have to be able to complete the check-ins, having new members coming in, having to complete training. So it was a bit of a perfect storm in terms of reasons that made us be lower than we should. And, I made that a priority. We had conversations with all the teams trying to ensure that check-ins were completed and recorded. So just for awareness, although that's outside this period, the latest figure that we had for October, November, it's gone up to 65% now. So
yeah, good. So we'll see some
Well, that
significant change.
yes.
by end of year. Fantastic. That was it from me. Any other questions for this service area from any other members? Okay, we just need to wrap up any
Yes.
actions, if that's okay, and then we can release you, if that's all right. Neil, you happy with?
So we've got committee recommended further engagement with private landlords and management companies. More.
Yeah, estate agents would be a good one on that as well.
Yes.
Estate agents that are managing them, because they're really easy to get and stuff. I was thinking of it afterwards.
Councillor Pym's query about the consultations.
yes.
With the update, Councillor Cleverly's query on Kimberley Park renovation, would the rest of the committee like an update on that as well sent out?
I think just the
No
ward
idea.
councillors, yeah,
Okay.
I'll go back to
everybody happy, it just goes to the ward councillors, yeah.
There'll be some query, Chair, about clarity on what the service area reporting in the commentary. General public might not know.
So the public protection measures.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
That was there any other comments or recommendations the committee would like to make in relation to this report?
Only that Sylvia was going to follow up with councillor Peel about beach park
Yeah.
consultation. Anything else from anybody else that we missed?
No, Chair.
Okay, you were going to send some specifics, I think, to
Yes.
Sylvia, but we don't need to know that. That's, yeah. Okay, thanks everyone. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Can I, yeah, it was just something we talked about earlier, didn't we? When we've got things like revenue forecasts, there doesn't seem to be a consistent way of presenting these in this. I mean, I'm looking at something now on page 4 of the first bit, first plan we're looking at. And there seems to be quite a substantial difference, but in reality is only £86 out.
It's the graphs, aren't they?
It's the
They
graphs.
resized all the
It's
the
time.
graph. But there's
Yeah.
another one in the next service report, which I think was the regen one, where actually it's nearly a £3,000 deficit, and it's about the same difference on the
Yeah.
graph. So I'm sorry about this, but I don't think this is for you to fix, right? And for us to be mystified over.
It does, because it makes it look like.
It
it's
look
much
better.
worse than
It does,
is.
yeah.
Well, everything else, the always regardless of what you do, is the gap's always the
Yeah,
same.
it catastrophize things which are
Yeah.
absolutely nothing.
It's something I
Yeah.
I was going to put up myself because I was sort of reviewed them on the weekend. It was like, yeah, that's not the best graph. I mean, yeah, dig into it, you go, yeah, it is, but it's not mediocre, is it? So,
And actually, just on that same page, on page 4, the capital forecast then, there's the revenue forecast and the capital forecast, and the capital, if I can read this properly, that's 1,400
That's for the next-
difference, and they're
Yeah.
virtually
Oh, yeah.
touching.
yeah.
So, yeah, so it is a bit, I don't know if you can devise another way of presenting that.
It's beyond our skill sets, but someone clever than us.
Somebody-
Yeah.
So we got.
We have got a meeting with Paul Flynn,
Yeah.
booked in for February to sort of review these, so I will raise it and take those action.
He's very good at sorting all those sort of things out. It's just, yes.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Okay, so we're moving on to regeneration and economic development. So welcome everybody. Yeah,
Yeah.
Breach. Come over this side if you want to. Yeah, it's fine. No problem at all. Wasn't too bad for this.
Sharing, dead on.
Yeah, it was all planned. It might be the fact that council meeting. It's all right, I'll tell him, it's fine.
It must be that right by this, I took this. That was a joke, by the way, for the benefit of the recording.
You put up with that, that is a joke, right?
That's the benefit of the South Wales Argus.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming along. We're looking now at second service area, which is regeneration and economic development. So we've got a couple of cabinet members here. I will invite you if you want to say anything to do so, and then I'll hand over presumably to Tracy and Commissioner what to do.
Oh, no, I leave it there.
Yeah.
Just like that, Councillor Court is also one of the
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Courtney as well. So I don't know if either of you want to say anything or you have to hand over. I'm fine, to be honest. Okay. Councillor Courtney, do you want to say anything?
No, I'm absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, over to you, Tracy.
So as you're aware, regeneration is quite a diverse service, covers a number of different things, ranging from the regulatory side of things to sort of more the events, culture, heritage and regeneration side. So across the service, it's been a really busy 6-month period. There's lots of events going on, including support and delivery of the annual marathon, the Big Splash and the Urban Beach that happened over the summer period. And obviously the team have been really busy planning for events which have happened more recently, including the Countdown for Christmas and the 3-day food festival. I mean, both of those events, I know they're slightly outside of the sort of the time range that we're looking at, but they both exceeded attendance numbers compared to last year. So, you know, really successful events programme being delivered and being planned for next year as well. The economic development team have been working hard on managing the SPF fund as we're in the final year of the current SPF fund, and we've seen you know, significant amounts of funding go into some really key projects, including the Strategic Park splash pad and also Pride in the Port events. There's lots of other community groups who've received some funding to deliver their events and their objectives. We've also been working on delivering and progressing the investment zone. So at the October budget, that was reconfirmed as a commitment of UK government. So we've been working hard to try to get that going forward. And the last 6 months has also seen Cabinet approve the leisure project. So again, just outside of the timeframe we're looking at, but the site's been handed over to the contractors. And I'm really pleased to say we made significant progress on the placemaking plan and also the cultural strategy.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee in relation to this service area? Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, one is, again, I think falls slightly outside the reporting area, but I did want to ask about the 50+ forum put on a older person's information day. Now, the last one of these was held before COVID. It's the largest such event, certainly in Gwent, probably anywhere in the South Wales region, not aware of anything bigger, did attract a considerable amount of interest. And formerly was held in the leisure centre, which had the capacity to take quite a few more people. This year, I think something like 300 or 400 people attended, but you know, and it was really welcome to see it re-establish itself. And I'm just wondering if we can sort of throw the weight of the council's recognition of it as a contributor to the regeneration of the city centre, raising the profile of the city centre when they hopefully deliver another one next year. As we've been talking about events. Right.
Any other questions from the committee? Go on, Kate.
Right, Jill Hall. We've got Lower Dock Street. So there's this dilapidated building which suffered a fire years and years ago. I wouldn't say it's the jewel in the crown of Newport architecture. It's a sort of faux castle. It probably looks more like Trago Mills in Devon than anything else. But it is a mess there. It's had scaffolding around it forever. Probably a good 12 months ago, I saw some people wandering around with clipboards who said that they were surveyors. And I said, how nice to see you here. Does this mean it's going to have something happen to it? And they said, oh, yes, we're starting on this shortly. And there's still been no progress on it. So I just wondered if anybody could update me on that, as it's quite an eyesore in the area.
Never trust a man with a whip.
Exactly.
Yeah, councillor, from my perspective, they have planning permission, they have listed building consent,
Right.
But they're currently out to tender for the works proposed. They've gone in there. I think there were some things that are worse condition than they anticipated. So they're currently out to tender. We are seeking updates from them, and the conservation officer is liaising regularly with the owner to try and push this on.
Okay, well that's good news with that we can see no visible changes apart from their perhaps economic and commercial interests. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for this service area?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, go on.
It's stated a priority list has been developed of unsightly properties and sites across the city. What makes the top 10?
Reel them off the top of your head now, Tracy.
I will look at that just because I don't want to miss it for that. So the real hall is one of those. Oh, I don't know.
You don't have to name all 10. I just want an idea which which properties are actually on the list.
So 1718 Upper Dock Street,
Yeah.
opposite the old passport office. 21 Charles Street, which is a corner property as you go down Stowe Hill. 39 Commercial Road, 66 Commercial Road, 149 Commercial Road, 153 Commercial Road.
Declare an interest there. How many commercial roads have you got there? And on a dock street, it's a coincidence.
We've got the Maltings,
All things, yeah.
the Lawns Club is on that list. And obviously TJ's was on that list, still is, because there's still some outstanding work to do, but I think that's probably where we've seen most success in terms of, you know, visual progress. It's still empty, but, you know, certainly we've been putting full weight of the planning powers behind that to get some visible improvements to the frontage of that property.
Paul's Church down Commercial Street. Is that on the list?
Okay.
Right. That's not looking very.
It's not to say that we won't look into it. I mean,
Right.
but it's just as part of this empty properties group where we're making a concerted sort of bringing a group together to try and target.
I mean, I know it's got permission on it, and there's a proposed purpose for it. It's just, you know, these things just drag on and on, don't they? And their buildings deteriorate. And the next thing we know, the financial commercial proposition has changed. Yes,
It's just we've obviously got to target so many at a time, and then when one falls off, we don't put another one on. Just to focus our efforts, otherwise it becomes too overwhelming.
are we taking forward, through the chair, are we taking forward the proposal before this amount of money, I believe, coming from Welsh Government to actually acquire properties which have got stuck?
So there is some funding available through Welsh Government, that's loan funding to
Right.
the council.
Okay.
So it's not something that the council have taken forward at the moment because it's loan. If it was grant funding, I think it would be a different proposal for us. But loan obviously presents a wider challenge for us. So we've been trying to use our enforcement powers to leverage some action.
It's difficult to secure a loan against, you know, a dilapidated building, probably cost on it rather than, isn't it? So that's the problem with that route.
Is this list privy to the public, Tracy? Should we be
It is,
naming and
it's
shaming them?
Yeah, that's no problem sharing that list. It's not secret. So yeah, share that. Check.
Yeah, I mean, and some of those are in the public domain in terms of planning enforcement decisions and things in any event. So yeah.
Is the Maltings enforcement? They were.
Not
You
at
did
the,
speak to that a while ago.
yeah, not at the moment, councillor. They are progressing it. Things have stalled to a degree.
It was in a dilapidated state, one of the gable walls, I think.
Yeah, we're in the process of considering whether we need to undertake the final works in default at the moment, but that's a last resort. We're trying to get the agent, the owner to undertake it. So yeah, we are in discussions with them. And they have done some things, but not everything.
There was one in Maine, wasn't there? The old club. The name of it.
The Lawns Club.
Yeah, the Lawns Club.
Yeah. That case.
So watch your space.
Councillor Clevy, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have a few questions actually on an update on the Transporter Bridge Visitor Centre project, an update on the ship project, and an update on the building in Mill Street. Who would like to start? Thank you very much.
Do you want me to start on the Transporter Bridge Visitor Centre?
Thank you very much, Councillor. That would be lovely.
No problem at all. So you'll be pleased to hear that the council is taking back ownership of that from the developer this week. And the work will begin on fitting it out with the interactive displays, and we'll be starting to welcome visitors from the end of next month onwards, which is really exciting. As we've mentioned before, those visitors will be community groups whilst the work on the bridge overhead continues. But yes, we're really excited about that, and it's going to be a brilliant asset for the city.
That's excellent news. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And in terms of the ship, now Tracy might correct me here, and she's more than welcome to. A feasibility study is due to be undertaken, or might already be underway, to try and work out what happens next in terms of a home for the ship. Tracy, do you want to add to that?
So you're right there, Cabinet Member. It's being undertaken now, and we're expecting that feasibility report to be back with us after Christmas. So that'll give us the options as to what we could and can do with the ship.
Lovely. Thank
So
you.
is that feasibility study informing you of what you might need for a site in order to go and look for it?
Absolutely. What we know is we can't say where it is because the site's not big enough. So obviously there's certain requirements, including gantries and things like that, that we need to be able to implement and control. So you know, it'll be the range of options that we can put in.
It's almost like a design brief then, almost, to tell you what you'll need to procure to housing there.
Which community I need there.
I think as well, it's important to remember the ship is huge. That's a huge challenge, and isn't it?
Yes.
35 meters long by 8 meters wide, and it is the best example of its kind in the world as well. So it's not just a case of sticking it somewhere. We've got to do what we can, really.
I was very lucky. I had a tour around it by Charles Ferris about a year ago, and I could see the work that's gone into it already, and it's a very ongoing project.
Absolutely, and the volunteers there are amazing at the current ship centre. We're very, very lucky to have them.
Thank you.
Yes, Trace, what parties are involved, heritage or like what part, other parts of site people get involved in this? As you know, it was trees that come built, ship that come from France. Since
Yes, thanks.
So lots of heritage groups are very interested in what we're doing. Obviously, the ship is owned by the city, the residents of Newport. But we've been working with lots of different people, including the university, the communities.
Davis, It's a plan of how to shop cradle to hold the shipments. But even understanding how that cradle built, so we're going through that.
So, but obviously, some of those projects you talked about, they'll come to the fore now when there's a lot of plan for it goes, that need funding, that needs capital investment, etc. So yeah, it won't be just brought back on the council, but as Matt says, we've got to make that sustainable then. Now we do that the best way that we can.
Okay, and the third one I think was Newport Street. Was it really supposed to?
Yeah, so I mean, we're all aware it's a really, really difficult site, and we are actioning current issues in terms of building open to access when they're reported to us. We are in discussions with the landowner about the sort of future of the site and how we can help and support and encourage it to be brought into use. I suppose the difficulty is those discussions are confidential, and it would be remiss of me to sort of disclose any of those details of those discussions, but suffice to say, to give you some reassurance that those conversations are happening.
Yeah, I think sort of on that, Councillor Clevy, really just reiterating what Tracy said. We're at a sensitive point in those conversations at the moment, and we can't disclose anything because if you own a company or you're hiring a corporate business and you're in those negotiations, there is that sort of principle, sort of what's being discussed at the moment can't go any further. But what we have got is the council's best intentions at heart, and hopefully we'll be more use in the future.
Thank you very much.
Is there a backstop date to that? So, is there a point where you'll say enough is enough? Because that's where it ought to be. Is there ought to be a point to say, we need to have done something by such and such a date, or we need a plan B.
I think there'll always be a case of a decision will have to be made.
Yeah.
That's sort of where we are at the moment. A decision will have to be made. That's really as much as we can say at this moment. And hopefully you'll realise in time why that's what we can say at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions for this service area? Couple from me if I can. The check-ins are excellent, so well done. They're above the target, so that's good, and they're also in the right direction. This sort of question came up at the last committee meeting. It might be a reporting issue, but so we had an answer last time, but it was a different answer to what is on the papers this time. So you've had 11 starters and 4 leavers in your service area, yet your head count has dropped. So we were told last time that this was something to do with people going to other departments who wouldn't be classed as leavers, but that would have been the other way around. So the numbers had gone up rather than down. So I'm not sure that answer is relevant to this one. So it looks like you've had 11 people start, 4 leave. Your head count's dropped by 2 since, well, gone by 2 since the start of the year, but dropped by 2 in the middle. Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't add up, does it? Unless that, what is the starting point? March. We're gonna have to get some of them stuff.
HR system.
Yeah, we were told there was a HR issue last time, and they were in the room last time. You'll probably remember, because perhaps you were here, but the answer they gave last time doesn't apply to this one because it's the wrong way around. So that's why it definitely needs to be looked at. And again, it's that sort of robustness of data, isn't it? When an external, member of the public or whatever looks at the data and thinks that doesn't add up. There was one other one from me. Was just an update on the placemaking plan. Really, it's due to be completed in Q3, so it should be completed by the end of December, I guess. That's evidently not going to happen because I'm aware that there's ongoing sort of work, so it's not going to be completed by end of December. So is the 50% right, and should that be amber or red rather than green? Because you're not going to complete it, shouldn't be by the end of December.
Oh, I think you've got what set the implementation of got high. Yes, for that, but other than that, progress has been extremely positive. We've over 2,000 people responded to the first round of consultation. We have another 600. That consultation is live currently at the moment. So it's big ideas at the first round. People say what they like and what they think is favorable as well for the city. So that's been really positive as well. But yeah, obviously the response has been sort of quick. We need to sort of digest all the information has been sort of passed back to the council and make sure that's all read through into the plan, which is intended to be collaborative with the city sector. So that's what it's ongoing, but that's positive. That's more we're perhaps expecting in terms of the level of response we've had, but that's positive. That's some people invested in the city sector as well. We're just thinking about this, I guess. So I think that's where we are. That's what we might agree because it's ongoing. So
I think also,
discussion.
Yeah, I think also we've added to it, having a cross-party group put in place. Yeah, we've added to it. That's added extra absolutely positive meetings. Absolutely positive meetings. And I said, I think sort of, this is the first time in my knowledge we've had a cross-party group for a long period of time. And the input is great from all members of that group. But that is probably sort of because we've had to put those extra meetings in, it's probably extended it a little bit more. But we're confident. I suppose the goal is at the end is getting the right information and moving it forward. We're confident we're in that position to do that. I get your point about that.
Yeah, I mean the point is that the target dates need revision or an ambulance saying we're not going to make that, and that's not criticism because the work that we're doing sort of with the working groups across Valley is all positive and hopefully will get us to a better plan that is more sustainable and longer reaching in future. So, but the point is sort of procedural in terms of the reporting, if you like, and agree. And the other one's on the investment zone, then, which again is we completed sort of end of March, but it's at the 25% completion. So it looks like a sort of tool to get there at the end of March.
Well, the target, obviously this is being led by the cultural committee, so we're feeding into that and making sure the interests of people are promoted and safeguarded. So that is definitely the target completion date. So it would be in effect from the 1st of April 2025. I think there's 5 gateways altogether. We've completed gateway 1. What I would say is, whilst we haven't got sign off for sort of gateways 2, 3, and 4, there's been a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes to sort of prepare those and gather the evidence to do that. So I'm happy that it was sort of 25% in. It's just got to go through those sort of formal sign off.
Quick succession.
And they will do.
It's also worth saying there was a delay created because we changed governments as well.
Yeah.
So that, that we were moving into Gateway 2 at a pace, then everything stopped with the civil service.
Yeah.
So
I think also was positive, actually, really on the following, we've got that commitment by the UK government to continue.
Yes.
So that's really, really important. So there was that sort of no man land period when we weren't really sure what was going to go on, but now so it sort of stuttered the process a little bit, but now we're moving forward again.
My point was really sort of what you're talking about. You said in your original answer that's the plan, but it was almost like it's a tall order. So it was like, is that going to really happen, and is it is it realistic and achievable? I guess was the point.
Everything set up to go pace.
Yeah.
So
real pace.
lots of stuff all penciled in, so that it's still aimed at target.
That's right.
It's a condensed. It's a condensed profile.
I just ask regarding the skills training provision related to the current further education training and qualifications to meet the aspirations and what we're going to do in 7.3. I mean, the bricks and mortar, what with new housing, one of the field houses, and lack of brickies and trades provided further education and national and so on. What's happening with
They're 2 separate things. So the college development, we're still very much in discussion with the college about handing over the site and then progressing their proposals for the new campus. And certainly, as we know, there is outline plan permission for them on that site. The skills and training provision is essentially the council's ambition to support employers with an employer-led skills and training provision. So a little bit different to what universities and colleges are traditionally offering. It's not something that the council would look to deliver itself, but the feedback from our employers and when we're speaking to our businesses is that there is this gap almost in sort of skills and qualifications provision that they need. So we're trying to sort of support them and understand what that could look like going forward. It's certainly not something that we would be delivering as a council, and certainly trying to tie that into potentially work that's being done through the investment sector, because there's a skills piece there to make sure that we've got the right workforce skilled and qualified to be able to sort of keep a pace with the economic growth that we're expecting as a result of being part of the investment sector.
this was going well?
Yeah, we've got a commission out at the moment to understand what that could look like. But yeah, we're just literally, I think we're just generally just trying to help our businesses. We're listening to them and understanding what the problems and the challenges are, and seeing how we can match things up.
I think sort of what's really important that is when myself and the leader go and visit businesses. Tracy just touched on it. We're in discussions and moving things forward. We're listening. We're listening exactly what Tracy just said. What are their needs? Because every business is different. So we're in that position of sort of very open and honest and transparent meetings where sort of how can we help? How can we help you? What's in our gift to help? And that's sort of where we are at the moment.
Okay, any other questions? Could I just pick up a final one? I just sort of check my notes. There was a budget saving for reducing the Newport live fee by 10%, and the report is that's likely to be achieved 100% of that budget saving. How has that gone? So you were sort of reporting, I think, last time, the end of last year, that you know, that was going to be a challenge for Newport to sort of look at their business model to achieve that. That was that gone, and then there was a sort of step reduction in the Newport Live management fee going forward. But I don't see at the moment any proposals for that saving next year in the papers that were at the last cabinet, except in the last, not the full suite of papers that have got the budget.
So in terms of the saving proposal that was agreed by cabinet, that's been achieved in council, because we literally just deduct that.
Yeah, I accept you've achieved this. Like, how has it
Yeah,
been
so,
received, and sort of
yeah.
has it impacted also?
you know, the feedback from Newport Live, it was a challenge for them to absorb that reduction. You know, they do have access to lots of different grant fundings and streams, and obviously they did take the decision in terms of management of their own business to increase membership fees. But you know, the feedback, we have monthly meetings, liaison meetings with them, and regular catch-ups with the cabinet member as well. You know, it's financially that hasn't disadvantaged them to the extent where they're in trouble.
Probably the other was partnership scrutiny. Yes, yeah. So that contract comes with a partnership. Because that's what the partnership. So there was a brief review of that for that scrutiny. So catch up. That was worth reading.
Yeah, you could feed the minutes in as an action, and for that, you want to see that useful. All right. Fantastic. Any other questions for this service area? Or have I bang on time again?
Sure, you know. And again there.
Well, we just need to finalise the recommendations. You only got 90 seconds.
The request for Tracy to send over the list of the priority properties to the committee. Further clarity on the headcount issue.
Yeah.
Chair, and I'll send the minutes of the partnerships committee meeting live over to the committee. Apart from that, was there any other comments or recommendations the committee would like to make for this report?
I don't think there was. I think everything else. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time. Okay, over to housing and community service area.
I show declare an interest as well, Chair. It's not a peculiar interest, it's mission core on the cabinet member for housing. As we know, there's a decant process which I believe will be finalised next year sometime.
Yes, into the financial year.
In the financial year.
Mission
Core.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I also live near that area.
Yeah.
That particular street just off it. So,
What did you describe as decant? Did I hear that right?
that's right.
Can
Yeah.
you describe
It says the homeless pods.
Oh, right, okay.
Are you familiar with that?
No, I've heard
area?
about them, but I don't know what they
So
look like.
that's, yeah, I think they would elaborate on that.
Yeah, okay. So we're essentially the pods are only ever.
We've been commissioning them.
Yeah, essentially council.
Yeah.
That's we can pick up the question.
Yeah, of course.
I've already declared an interest in this item at the start of the meeting anyway, so I work in housing in the city.
I just wanted to declare an interest that I host a Ukrainian family part of the Ukrainian schemes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Any other declarations of interest? No. Okay. Right, so I don't know if the cabinet members want to say anything or just hand it straight over to David.
I can, I mean, the pressures are the same as you know, Chair,
Yeah,
both in your private capacity, you know, in the housing field and also
yeah,
Chair Scrutiny, you're fully aware of the pressures on the ground. Broadly speaking, in terms of the financial pressures associated with our local budget when it comes to housing, it's very much related to, of course, the high sort of costs associated with temporary accommodation, hotels, B&Bs. We simply can't match the demand of, you know, the bricks and mortars really, particularly with, I think there's a high sort of significant rate in single people, which there's a massive need for that in terms of security as well. There's pressures around security costs. So what we do have plans in process, such as a rapid rehousing plan, which will come before the committee, hopefully in February next year. And that's a plan essentially to not completely address the pressures on the ground in relation to housing, but it's a way forward, I think. And along with that, we've got the National Homeless Programme, which is run by the Royal Foundation. And as you know, Newport's been identified as a flagship location. So there, we do have hopefully resources and a plan in working with partners and along with, of course, the Royal family who's got the steer on that programme. So yeah, I mean, I think David will elaborate a bit more on the issues on the ground that we're facing and the plans that we have in place. But that's it from me. David, over to you.
thank you. Before you do, can I just also declare an interest because I've gone to a few of the home which meetings and had some discussion on some of those in my private capacity. So thanks.
Right, thank you, Chair, thank you, Cabinet Member. So just to kind of give a high level overview to build with the Cabinet Member's summary. If we focus on the homelessness aspect first, that feels like a decent jumping off point. I think you will see, we look at the performance measures, that's probably a good place to start. So
Which page are you on?
I'm on page 26 of my report in the scrutiny pack. That be page 36.
Thank you.
It's the housing homelessness, number of households in temporary accommodation. Yeah, page 101 on the left hand side.
So I think what this shows is a quite a complicated picture in some ways, in that what you'll see is if we look at the bottom measure, now that is the total number of positive outcomes that the local authority can achieve from a homelessness perspective. But essentially we can achieve a positive outcome when we prevent homelessness, so where we stop someone from becoming homeless within 56 days of their threat, where we relieve homelessness. So that's relief is a bit of a weird one. That's between the prevention stage and the discharge stage, so the full duty stage. And then where we accept a full duty under the Housing Act, and we support the person to move on into accommodation. And we call that homelessness discharge, which is a terrible phrase, but that's the legal term. Now, what we'll see as a whole is that we're on course to exceed our target in terms of the total number of positive outcomes so far this year, which is really, really positive. And that's driven kind of by two things in the main. It's driven by an improvement in our homelessness prevention performance, which is now showing a consistent improvement. And we were not quite at target for the first 2 quarters, but kind of 0.1% off target there. Sorry, 1.1% off target there.
So we can see that really consistent improvement, and then a high number of people being discharged from temporary accommodation. So we've accepted the full duty and we then move them on into settled housing. Where the performance has dipped is around the homelessness relief. But I think that does need to be viewed in the round of the kind of the three positive outcomes that we could achieve. I think what's important to say with this performance is that the first 6 months were prior to the introduction of our single suitable offer approach, which you'll be aware of from the cabinet member report that went through the system at the end of September, which will increase the number of properties available for prevention, relief, and for discharge. So it is already having an impact, and I would expect that to kind of continue over the remaining months of the year. Now, notwithstanding all of that, the demand for temporary accommodation and the number of households in temporary accommodation under homelessness duties has continued to rise. I think some kind of important context when we think about Newport is that according to the Welsh Government statistics for last year, we had the highest number of homelessness applications per 10,000, along with another authority in Wales. So we really are dealing with some of the highest levels of demand in the country. As you'll notice in the kind of the introduction to the paper, we are seeing a shift in the demographics in temporary accommodation, and pleasingly, we are beginning, and this is sustained over 6 months. I think we can say there is a trend there to see a positive impact for families with dependent children in temporary accommodation. That number is going down, which is great. The problem we have at the moment is demand for single people, including those with significant support needs, continues to rise. And
that's been there for some time now, hasn't it?
It is. We're seeing that trend. Yeah, we're seeing that trend continuing further, Councillor Thomas. And that presents with some challenges, particularly because, you know, one-bedroom accommodation is actually the kind of the highest in demand and the accommodation that we have the least supply of. So that's something we're really having to focus on over the next time. We are focusing on and moving forward. And I think the focus we need from that client group would be twofold. Firstly, we need to acquire different types of accommodation, particularly accommodation with RSL partners, because RSL partners can access housing benefit funding that's cost neutral to the council for housing that client group, whereas as Cabinet member touched upon, we have a subsidy cap placed on our ability to access that accommodation. So there's a point there around housing supply for this client group. And then secondly, there's a point around ensuring that we've got targeted and robust housing support going into those properties to really ensure that people are given the opportunity to recover from the issues that led to their homelessness, which is, as you'll all know, often related back to long histories of trauma. And as you'll see from the report, there's been a lot of work in the first kind of 2 quarters to really look at that and to commission new services to go into temporary accommodation and support those groups. And those services are now largely in place and working with people in temporary accommodation. Alongside that, and still focusing on that kind of cohort of single people. We've also got a really important work stream at the moment that will be complete by the end of the financial year to rethink what that accommodation looks and feels like for people, and to ensure that, you know, rather than to reduce some of our pressures around security by again increasing support and really thinking about the mix of people in temporary accommodation, to ensure that it's as sustainable as possible for the individuals there, but also for the council. Just sticking on housing for 1 second, there have been some quite significant achievements within the first 6 months of the year. So as I've already mentioned, we've got those amendments to the Common Allocations Policy 3 and a single offer approach. We've delivered a really robust training programme to the frontline service, that is ongoing because we've had quite a lot of churn in terms of officers. But as of today, we've got a fully staffed frontline service. There's a lot of recruitment in the last couple of months to backfill vacancies. From a housing strategy perspective, we've seen an improvement, and we're now at target in terms of our empty homes KPIs, which is really good. And we've continued to use grants effectively wherever possible to bring properties back into use. From a communities perspective, you'll see within the report we move towards the KPIs again. So that will be page 103, I think, community centres and libraries. There was a slight dip in the percentage of students successfully completing our ACL courses for the last academic year. And in response to that, we've kind of looked at accessibility of courses and actually used some SPF funding to create some new kind of classroom spaces in the Central Library Museum and in Peold Library, with new class timetables being trialled to try and ensure that we're getting people in, and also just ensure that our partnerships are as robust as they can be. And we're confident we won't know until the end of next academic year, so there's going to be a bit of a gap there, but we're confident that those measures will enable us to kind of get back into the green there. You'll also notice that we've got a couple of numbers in terms of our attendees at library service events and the number of events, but those are very, very marginal. And again, talking to the team, we're confident that we've got the arrangements and events in place to hit target by the end of the year.
Let's look at this. Not what this. I don't actually understand how that one is. Slightly ahead of.
I did. Is this the number of events and activities delivered by library service?
394.
I did pick that out, and let's saw it again. I think that was
It
great.
was, so I was going to pick up. So yeah.
That's a bit wrong, isn't it?
Better for it to be wrong in a green space.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do everything I forget. Just to kind of touch on some other areas of the service. I think it's worth touching on the Multiply project. That's an amber for us because of the kind of challenges around spending the quantum of funding that we have for that project. And you probably remember that it's a really significant chunk of funding that we've had to deliver in a 2-year SPF period, as opposed to a 3-year SPF period. And actually, if you look at funding, probably if we'd had a 3-year period, we'd have been there or thereabouts. And notwithstanding all of that, I think it's really positive to see. It has had a really quite wide-ranging impact in the city, enabling over 1,000 people to access some form of provision around improving their numeracy. I think it's one of those that will have a really kind of positive impact on citizens, and really being kind of despite the challenges, quite a positive experience in terms of the outcome delivery. So yes, any questions? That's kind of optimistic, didn't it, Councillor?
Okay.
The interjection, single suitable offer.
Yes.
Now, to me, do you want to explain to me, because I thought of somebody being viewed at a property, going to see a property, it's not suitable, they refuse, then they get put back on the list.
Yeah, so a single suitable offer is really, it's about ensuring that where we owe a duty to someone, they get that offer of accommodations, tenure neutral offer, so it could be social, it could be private, and that we're really clear with them up front that our homelessness duty is to provide suitable accommodation. That's the only way we can end it.
Yeah.
But to be really kind of clear with people up front as to what that offer is likely to look like. Unfortunately, we're unable to cater to lots of preferences within the homelessness system. We just don't have the stock for it. So it's really a way of us being very clear with officers and with clients. If you're kind of coming through that route, we will discharge our duty through a single suitable offer, but it is going to be that single offer, and we're unable to accommodate lots of preference, unfortunately.
I'm
So then they're put
grateful to you.
they're then put back in the back of the list. Is that correct?
No, so it's
I know I've been, one of my residents have come to me and said, well, just told us all my children in school year, and I got to go over the other side of there and what I do.
yeah. So homelessness legislation sets out what's considered to be suitable, and we are required to consider all factors around somebody's personal circumstances. But that does need to be balanced against the limitations of what's available, and trying to work with that person to identify, okay, this property may not be your preference, but what can be done to enable that offer? Because oftentimes it will be far more suitable than remaining living in unsuitable accommodation or hotel accommodation. And ultimately, the council's duty is to make that suitable offer. And if someone refuses that offer, they have three options. What the make. They can choose to accept it, they can choose to just kind of refuse it and appeal, or they can choose to accept it, they can choose to refuse it and appeal but not move into the accommodation, or they can choose to move into the accommodation and launch an appeal.
Just on that, David, appeals within 21 days, so it's a
It
fair
is.
process.
It is. It's all a statutory process, but ultimately, if someone refuses a suitable offer and doesn't move into the accommodation, the council may discharge its homelessness duty towards them.
I'm very grateful to Malcolm for asking that, because I think I need it clarified. I think I may not have been as precise as I should have been with the constituents who wrote to me a little while ago, who claimed all sorts of reasons why she didn't want to go to a certain area. And I think that, I should have been a lot more precise in terms of my answers. So thank you for clarifying that one.
Yeah, and I'm happy to recirculate cabinet member report as well. That would be useful, or just send it to yourself directly, councillor.
Yeah.
So sure.
Yeah, I mean, the cabinet member report was there. I mean, it's important to remember that people have a right to request a review.
Oh, completely.
And they take that up in the reviews, as Councillor Dan said, dealt with quite swiftly normally. And, I always advise people to kind of take the property and request a review rather than refuse it, because at least you're still there if you lose the sort of reviews. But, sometimes people don't, do they? They just sort of dig their heels in and out. But that can mean that the temporary accommodation is ended as well. Sometimes, as well, you don't have to keep them in there when they request a review. So, I mean, when you get people contact you, I would always say speak to the team. You're much better sort of getting the advice from professionals to go back rather than sort of making assumptions on it. That's what I said.
Is the appeal made to the decision at the appeal stage?
It will be a team leader within the housing team. So it'll always be an officer senior to the front.
Thank you.
It's people can seek independent advice. They can talk to the Citizens Advice Bureau. They can talk to shelter, and there is a process for them to appeal, but that decision is made by council officers.
Right. It's all compliant as well. Just to add on to Councillor Vince's asked a very good question actually in terms of law, regulations, and policy. So they're not disadvantaged. Sorry, you was going to say something, Councillor.
As I say, as councillors and the like, we're not fully conversant with all the legislation and the reasons why they're not being given. Read it out. If I don't know where to this, now I know, I can say, well, you've got this option, this option. Whereas at the time, I wasn't really aware of it. You said things out in the cabinet member reports, they're so bulky.
No, I totally agree with you on that point. And perhaps we can look at an augmented session.
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
we brief members on the process. It is a new process and it's being piloted as well for a 2-year period, I want to say, and it's reviewed every 6 months.
Exactly, and I wonder as well, alongside running a session for cabinet members, as well for councillors, it'd be worth. I'll make sure it's included in our FAQs document. So we're producing quite a robust document of FAQs for members, for MPs and MSs. So I'll make sure it's there as a reference point because you guys are dealing with so much.
That would be very helpful because actually the person I'm thinking about was referred from the MP, which obviously was the wrong process because it is a council thing. It's not a Welsh Government thing.
Like, the key thing is, we'd obviously love to people in more, perfect house for them. There simply isn't availability. So, and we've got to be realistic. There's unlikely to be availability this year, next year, or the year after. It's trying to do the best with what we got, isn't it?
Yeah, with front line. That brings me on to the other question then. You're in partner, there's a lot of the talk in these breaks now, you talk with partners, partnership relations, city owners, Pobble and the like, RSLs. I don't know what, as you say, we're under pressure, we ain't got enough ends in, we can't turn them around quick enough. Do you query the RSLs on their KPIs for turning around void properties and the like? Because I know wherever we go, we see them, they're just sat empty, and my residents come to me, this has been empty for 6 months, 2 months. And I know there was a Welsh Assembly when I was in conflict, but are you aware of the KPIs? They come to you, and I know they're separate from the council. Obviously, they've still got a duty to turn around these properties within a certain time.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I've queried that a few times as well, council meeting. It's a lot of it's to do with regulation and legislation, because we're not the scrutiny body and the regulatory body. We can't directly hold them accountable, which is unfortunate. So we are sort of lobbying for changes at a very top level, Welsh Government level. Because currently it's more of a arm's length partnership approach. And then there's a whole sort of that whole debate around why are we not holding the local registered social landlords within our local authority area accountable on behalf of the community. So we are looking at ways through our strategic partnership group. We work with RSLs. We also work with them in partnership in terms of developing properties, and they do share information with us. So there is that sort of partnership. But in terms of voids, that sits with the Welsh Government. If I'm right in saying that, David, you can touch on that in terms of holding them to account and scrutinising.
So I only mention it because we're all part of this housing, common housing register.
Just on that as well, can I just add on to that? Can't disclose too much information because there is a lot of work going on in the background in terms of how we work with RSLs at a local level. But we are potentially looking at introducing service level agreements. I can say that with RSLs in how we work with them, and I can't go into detail at the moment in terms of the works that are going on, but that is something that we are considering.
And I would say, in fairness to some of the work we've done, say last year through one of the Welsh Government's capital grant programmes, we were able to identify it was about 75 void RSL properties that have been brought back into use over the course of this year.
Right, okay.
It's kind of an ongoing process. So we've just had some come through earlier on this month using those capital grants to bring them back into use. And those were properties that have been void due to kind of quite significant issues with the buildings for
failure to address repairs, possibly. Well, you don't have to comment on that. Failure to address repairs.
Well, I think I need to answer. No, not for long enough. Yeah, I mean, but I do think it's worth recognising that for some of the RSLs in the city, the stock that they have is perhaps more complex than others. You know, if you know,
Some of them took advantage of funding maybe 20, 25, 30 years ago and bought up stuff which I think was going cheap at the time.
It's worth pointing out, you know, although we don't have direct control, you know, we obviously provide funding for a lot of stuff, and
Yeah,
with the new leader
absolutely.
is coming in place, and with the cabinet members, he's calling pretty much all of the RSLs either operate in Newport or wanted to operate in Newport, and be quite firm with what is expected, both in terms of, as the boy, but also in terms of affordable housing. And he's made it clear to everybody that if they don't perform, then the money go elsewhere. And so, you know, I think we've got quite a, you know, a firm approach. And that's
and as Paul's alluded to, you know, we've had really tough conversations, haven't we, with ourselves and David, you know.
I think it's Welsh Government we need to have a tough conversation.
Yeah, I think what I agree with you, Councillor Thomas, but I think we should sort of work with what's within our gift, but at a local level. We should lobby, absolutely, Welsh Government to make those changes. But then if we want to sort of streamline the process and expedite it, it's within what we can do within our gift at a local level.
You see, I remember a few years
so those
ago.
pots of money Paul alluded to, those are the levers that we administrate.
Yeah,
but we should be using that.
Yeah.
Not against him.
A few years
in a
ago,
constructive way.
I was on the board of Bainville Housing Association, and because of legislation which the Welsh Government brought in, we were no longer able to keep ownership of that, and that was given away to a far larger housing association, who record of repairs, punctuality on completing repairs isn't anything like the measures that we were to implement. So, you know, this it's not something that would ever have happened if we hadn't have been faced by quite draconian legislation which was brought in by Welsh Government. This is why I argue that Welsh Government should be answerable for this, because it's their legislation which has in many ways restricted us from perhaps holding the RSLs to account.
I totally agree.
Time there was good communication together.
Yeah.
Feed in, we could talk together, we were around the table, as it were.
And we had councillors on their boards, which of course there was then they didn't have to have us on their board.
We are unfortunately sort of victims of past mistakes on lots of things, you know, one being this council voting away its powers to retain, you know, shareholder majority on Newport City Homes' board, which I asked the cabinet member a question about recently. So, you know, there have been a number of things that have gone wrong in the past. You can't dwell on that. We just need to look at what's in front of us and what we can influence and do. And I think the cabinet member is absolutely right. Deal with the things that are in your gift. There are a number of failures that have happened, or others might argue perhaps they're not failures, but you know, those things are gone. We need to look at what can we influence, what can we do to solve this crisis that's right in front of us now.
That's in hindsight, yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree with you, Chair. We do need to move forward. So we will be lobbying.
Well, I like to think in terms of people being accountable, even if it's mistakes which they made in the past.
No, I'm totally in agreement with you, Councillor Thomas. Important things, you know, correcting those issues, but then let's see what we could do within our gift. And we administer, obviously, you know, grants, whether it's the social housing grant, the TACP, etc. So we should be using those levers of control really in a constructive way and holding. I don't want to use. I've got to be really careful in what term I use. Accountable, so to speak, but call them to action certain projects within the area, and if they don't meet those targets that we set in line with our strategy, then we do have to review everything really.
Yeah, and I think
in terms of how we work with it.
The point of the committee, I think, to sum that up for Neil's benefit, is the committee seeking assurance that we are on top of the arrangements with our managing RSLs and other partners, and I think you're giving that assurance.
Yes, I would agree.
So I think that's the answer.
Yeah. Chair, I wanted to ask a question about the demographic which are identified as being the the one which we know we're having the most challenge in the community, i.e. young single men, not the younger single men. I want to declare an interest because I want to specifically mention something which is happening in my ward, also in the area that I live. I recognise this. I recognise this is a high risk group for having challenges maintaining their tenancies and their homes because of lots of things that happen at that sort of age group or whatever. And I also recognise, and I was obviously particularly aware of this when they introduced the bedroom tax. It's very difficult to find one-bedroom properties. But we've got an opportunity. We've got a forthcoming development in my ward, which will, offer significant opportunities to house people. And I just wanted to say that I know that they will be developing their plan around the local demand which has been identified. But actually, I would like to be assured that we do have some flexibility to consider where best to place people. We also know that there are challenges from older people in the community. And sometimes we're having to take those people into places that they wouldn't want to be because we can't offer them something different, something that suits their changes in circumstances as they age, or perhaps a partner dies or other things like this. And I would just I know I have spoken to you about it, Mr. Walton, and I think I've mentioned it to Mr. Jones as well, that there are other proposals on the table which recognise the need specifically to support older people as they age to find comfortable, affordable and appropriate accommodation for them. I just want us to be open to considering, there may be opportunities for people in the city centre. We know how popular the city centre has been when flats have been developed over empty shops and things like this, or whole blocks of accommodation. We know that the majority of those will be taken up by people in that most at need demographic. And how are we building in the considerations of perhaps other demographics with slightly different needs who may not want to be in the same sort of accommodation, who may not get the same benefits from, example, living in the city centre.
So I think one of the real challenges we have with the acuity of homelessness demand is that the last thing we want to do is react in such a way that it creates really significant problems down the line. Yeah. Because we need to create communities that can be sustainable and successful. So it's not in the report, but I think it's relevant to share with the committee. One of the things that, firstly, that's a key kind of factor when we're talking to ourselves about kind of grant allocation, and you'll be aware of I've heard Matt touch on the work specifically around the placemaking strategy for the city centre. But kind of at the start of this year, we're holding them now 6 monthly, so actually it was kind of in the summer, I think. We set up a new kind of way of agreeing to place properties onto the planned development programme for social housing grants. And that consists of a little panel between myself and 2 other heads of service. One of the key things that does is it means that we've got some planning there, and another colleague to really try and think about the configuration of those developments, so that we are focused on our acuity of need, but we're also thinking about other groups and how we can ensure that our communities are sustainable now and into the future, and that we're not inadvertently causing kind of issues around community cohesion, antisocial behaviour, etc., etc.
Exactly. I just wanted to make sure you're aware that we're losing the share centre, which is closing after quite a few years now. We did used to have the share centre, which always had challenges because it's not disability accessible or very friendly. I mean, they're very friendly there, but we always had a few extra problems with it. But years ago now, not long after I was elected, we lost the Baineswell Club, Baineswell Community Centre, which is on St Mary Street. Nothing's happened with those premises still, but that's another story. But basically, we don't have anywhere which is not a faith-based centre now. Well, we just got nowhere. It's the charges that people are making for the hire of rooms and things like that, quite prohibitive on a lot of places. So we really are the worst provision city centre, surely anywhere. We just don't have those facilities. So I wanted you to be aware of that, and when considering, the community aspects of this, can we be putting, can perhaps officers make proposals or just give help to support the establishment of some of the former premises. It may not be the same. It's sadly losing this. And it was a provision that the property itself was owned by Pobble, but it's obviously not been sustainable. So it'd be really good to get some guidance from officers in supporting, our communities. Also, I mean, some of the things which were held there, they did quite a, they were council-based services were operating out of there. So, this is a loss in other ways as well. And then, no, I think that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just mention,
it's sad to see the share centre not being able to operate now. And I think that was a management issue really, where they couldn't get a committee together, so that folded. But Stowe Hill as well has got the Hive at the bottom, which is
but it's sort of, it's earmarked, isn't it, for slightly different services?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
I do take your point. But I just want to just pay tribute to the people that ran.
Absolutely, it's been going for years. Years. Well, yes, in one way or another, I've been involved in that for over 20 years. 24, 25 years now. Yeah.
But there are there's the church, the newly built church, which has got a cafe at the front of it. And quite a few community activities running from it.
Yes, but it's not, obviously they're going to give priority to their parishioners. Thank you.
It's not really a house. It's pubs. Storage yard to me. Pubs. Community centres. What provision are there in other wards for opening times of an evening? Evening opening for the youth to go to. In the evening till 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
Can I just declare an interest here on the topic of hubs, because I sit on the film and centre board.
Yeah.
Just friends, sorry.
I just want to know what other wards where if they open of an evening.
Yeah, it really depends. So we have, Ringland can be open. We have other, Rivermead, for example, has bookings within the evening. And they do tend to be in the evenings more your kind of your Zumba class type bookings or boxing club type bookings rather than specific kind of youth provision. And I would say that the community buildings are quite a challenging portfolio to manage at the moment because of the levels of community use and the building. So this is why, as you'll see in the report, we are in line with the corporate plan, looking at how those buildings can be configured to be sustainable whilst also meeting community needs.
Yeah, it's what I'm looking at this. The window across the road, there's not a use, one user facility there hanging around outside it. You're not allowed to go in it. And the idea of a hub, community centre, was predominantly for the community. My community don't seem to be getting its share of use out of the hub. Whereas historically in the past it did, when it was on the board. So I'm just trying to find a way of getting my community the use inside these hubs. Well, we can certainly have a discussion around that outside the meeting, Councillor Linton, with the community regeneration manager. I think for us, if we can find tangible ways to use the building in a way that's sustainable, then absolutely that's the space we're in. So I'll drop you an email after this meeting, and maybe we can catch up and kind of look at it properly. That's okay.
I am well aware of Councillor Linton's concerns on particularly the Ringland Hub, and we are looking at community centres in and around a number of districts in Newport, and looking at the provision we make there, and looking at those more for prevention of antisocial behaviour in and around the area. And I know the Ringland Hub again has the potential to combat antisocial behaviour, and it would make sense to me for it to be open on a longer basis, as I've said to you. However, at the minute, it isn't funded and we're looking to see whether that can be funded, but for a longer period of time. But again, that's not in the budget for it at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. For the sake of the record, and so they don't feel overlooked, I should actually mention the place which is set up, which is a tremendous resource which is coming to the city centre. It is provide. I mean, they're so organised and energetic and active that they've got a range of activity going which they have organised themselves. So, and some of that, a lot of that is very open to people to go and participate in. So I mustn't forget that they're a very welcome addition to our area in the city centre.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to the same point really, is that over the years there were a number of volunteer organisations that would support the council with the running of these sort of community centres and community groups. I mean, I was housing officer in England 20 odd years ago, and we had this sort of the residents group there that would run the youth clubs in the evening. Josie used to run it for years, Josie Bill, and as those sort of die off and haven't been replaced, it becomes much harder for the council to try and deliver something new with decreasing budgets that previously the community have led. And if I'm honest, statutory services are not always best placed to deliver those types of services as well. Youngsters don't necessarily want to engage with the council on that basis. They'd be happy to go and engage with people they know and trust in their community. So it is a challenge. It's really hard balancing act, and it's some of the perhaps you can pick up with David after, but I do sort of sympathise with the sort of challenge of replacing those sort of groups that were really prevalent probably 20 years ago, and that only a few exist now, I'm afraid. So really challenging. Any other questions for David and colleagues? Anybody got anything? Did you have something, Alex?
Yeah, just one question. Can David give us a breakdown in numbers the vulnerable groups which we're helping with accommodation, like prisoners and refugees and asylum seekers? And do we get any additional money when we're helping these groups?
So I can certainly give you a breakdown following the meeting. I don't have the exact breakdown to hand, but we can circulate that, Councillor Pym. That's no problem at all. We do receive some pots of funding to support with certain groups. So, for example, we receive criminal justice funding through a scheme called CAS3 to support the provision of temporary accommodation for some groups of people leaving the criminal justice service. And on the kind of the community, I don't know why somebody's shouting. I think it's because you're on the screen. And for groups resettling in the city, we receive a variety of grants from the Home Office to support with things like resettlement and housing costs.
Does that money cover the caretakering of people when they're in temporary accommodation? What we've got, I know we've got multiple occupation in my ward, who are covering that group. You know, do we have sufficient funds there to supervise their living in those places? Because it's been a bit disruptive, a lot disruptive.
The security, yeah.
No, I'm not going to security out of
Care.
supervision
Supervision.
of the way people live in houses. And it may be as simple as rubbish, but it goes beyond that as well, you know.
So there is a post that's funded to kind of coordinate the category scheme. In terms of the day-to-day housing management of properties, that's managed by the temporary accommodation team. The issue that we have as an authority that feeds directly into the budget pressures is that, you know, the cost of a placement may be £200 a week, but the housing benefit we receive is £80 a week.
Right.
So we're always operating on a deficit basis because of the housing benefit rules surrounding
And
temporary
they don't,
accommodation.
the Department of Justice don't make truthful.
So they will pay for the temporary accommodation for that specific cohort, but there'll be rooms dotted about rather than kind of single houses. The wider point I suppose I'm making is that because of the DWP housing benefit regulations, the council can kind of never recover the full cost of running temporary accommodation. So we're always running it at a deficit, including expenditure and staffing costs to manage.
Going back to that, we used the word earlier about how these things fit in and contribute to the community.
Yeah.
Or not.
Is that happy with that, Alex?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, no, that's great, Chair. Thank you, David.
Any other questions from anybody online? I've got a couple, if not.
But are we getting home office money, are we?
Yeah, we get a couple of different tranches of money.
Going to make the same point for the record that I did in the last service area about the numbers on the head count and the starters and leavers and then overall, although we always sort of appears to balance a bit more. So it would be good to sort of go away.
It's getting closer. It's getting close.
It's not expecting to answer, but yeah, we could sort of have a look at them. That would be great.
I can answer that in part that we've created quite a few new posts.
Yeah.
In the service, so there should be more starters and leavers over this.
It's not the funny thing is that the gap between those two doesn't add up. So look, you've got net 8.
I see.
What are those other people?
Yeah, fair point.
Yeah.
I was looking at the graph on the right, not the graph.
No, that wouldn't make sense, but it doesn't add up to the other.
It doesn't make sense. Okay, we will check that.
Yeah. And it would be remiss of me not to pick up the Bible to check points. I think that would be every service area. If Councillor Reach doesn't, because both of us do. So I mean, it's moving sort of slowly in the right direction, but is there a plan to sort of get that above and beyond the sort of council target of 65, which we're encouraging to increase in any event?
Yes, so all of the managers at every level within the service have an objective around this now that can be clearly monitored in their check-ins. And as part of the work we've been doing on the housing side of the service, a key element has been to introduce more formal procedures around check-ins and case management. I suspect that to contribute to a continual increase.
And then on the page before, there's some medium-term financial plan sort of statements. The one 372,000, we're saying we're not going to hit at all, and that's sort of acting as a guarantor. Is that because we can't get landlords to sort of sign up to that, or is there another reason?
It's because despite all of the work with the private rented sector, and to be fair, actually different schemes have overtaken the guarantor scheme, such as Leasing Scheme Wales. The levels of demand mean that we can't bank the saving, moving people out back to essentially.
Okay. So we've probably done some of it, but we haven't realised the saving.
Yeah,
Right.
it's the way the financial report is on it. Is that probably has been achieved per se, but the rest of that budget is so spent, it's drowned out.
That's interesting.
It can't flow through as I say.
Wonder whether that's the right way to report it.
It's more of a cost avoidance.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that cost of it has been, but because you're overspent. Yeah.
You might have been successful on it, so it
can't see
takes away the fact that you've done some work on it, because it looks like you haven't
Yeah.
achieved anything, but you probably have.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to look at that, maybe, and sort of think about how we sort of capture that for a report to show the success effectively anyway, as we should. And then I guess the other saving we're only sort of realising in part, which is the libraries. Is there a sort of reason why that's only in part?
That's an ongoing process. We expect to realise that by the end of the financial year. And the way the saving was profiled, it kind of we're only making the initial elements of it from September, October onwards. That's quite a big leading period.
Chair, we're looking to transform the library service and to meet the modern demand for service, which is changing, and so we're addressing that by revamping and modernising the service.
Yeah, I guess what the report is telling me is that you targeted 104 grant savings, but actually you're telling me you're only going to achieve 47,500
in this year, isn't it? And
Yeah.
what David said, he's still hoping to achieve that into future years. So
Right, okay, so
this is
into the next.
this is what you're putting in here. So
Yeah.
There'll be further progress this financial year.
Shelves in our libraries with physical books, is that going to change?
Sorry, Councillor Thomas?
Is the shelving in our libraries with physical books, is that going to look very different?
I think there's always going to be a place for your kind of traditional library physical copies on shelving. I think it's, in terms of transformation, it's about ensuring that our libraries are located in the best possible location for people, and that actually I think kind of we look at our usage. How can we take the library offer around literacy and reading out and reach more people? Because people aren't necessarily coming into the buildings themselves. You look at things like the e-books, newspapers, that's constant growth. So I think it's a different offer, but it still needs to be focused on, those core elements of the library service around learning, literacy, reading, and
The number of adults who have poor literacy skills, which just don't function or can't be functional in the sort of society we live in now, is really alarming. It may be too early, but I mean, with the change in the library now being an information centre and people going in there for advice on housing and other public services, do you anticipate we could be reaching more people with poor literacy skills? Is this an opportunity?
I think one of the key things that we want to do as part of the community-led library strategy is to find those groups that probably traditionally haven't engaged with library services and could really benefit from it. So just a really small example is that within the Central Library Museum now, our library team will regularly kind of go up to the housing floor and provide activities to children if they're waiting, whether that's or and hold story times, and just that's a tiny example there, but it's those sorts of activities that we want to roll out, because really the library shared service should be trying to pull people into that offer.
Exactly.
It's so diverse.
It's also the adults.
Completely.
Because obviously the adults live through as children, but I mean, the adults are the ones who need those skills to just to survive. I think really it's dramatically.
There's also an opportunity there around actually the role that the library plays in trauma-informed this within the housing service delivery.
Absolutely.
That example you gave is exactly that.
Yeah, and that's absolutely. That's
You're not going into a sort of I always describe the old rates that were sort of down at the end. They're sort of imposing, then you sort of walk in there, you frighten the death when you walk in there. But if you're going into a welcoming environment where there's things for the children to engage, it's much different in terms of the experience that you get of having to ask for help around housing officers and other council services as well, in particular. So yeah, definitely. I completely lost my train of thought now. So I wanted to commend the plan because it's very uncommon that we see completed items at this time of the year. So I think that's great. There are lots of items that are complete and lots sort of in progress. So I think that's fantastic to see. You've touched a few times on the sort of challenging climate around homelessness, and the sort of you gave at the start some of the statistics around sort of Welsh government, I'm sorry, Newport in relation to Wales and the wider UK in terms of sort of challenges of that. The council gets a lot of SPG funding, supported people grant funding for the minutes. Or is there an opportunity for that to increase to recognise the challenges of the cohort that we are currently dealing with in comparison to other areas in the city? Or are we just expected to re-tender and be smart with the way that we spend the money to get more value? And it looks from your report that we've done that. We've been as smart as we can, but we've still got the challenge. So, you know, is there, because council funding each year is redistributed based on sort of population and need, but is SPG looked at?
We found that have a look at the indicators, but we should be making the point on that, shouldn't we? Some of those indicators are based on, you know, some are like 10 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and that particularly affects because we are, you know, sales office, but it's true we're one of the fastest changing demographics.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the lag in the indicators hits us more than anyone else.
Yeah.
And we've seen that with our RSG up for the last 2 years. It was catch up because our figures are running the census. So yes, I think we're having a look.
There's certainly a role being element to Welsh government, isn't it? You know, you've changed our RSG because you've recognised the challenging or changing sort of demographic. Now you need to change our SPG funding because the challenges for it, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it's certainly an argument to make.
absolutely. I'd happily take that forward. It's a good, really good point.
That's it from me. Great. Any other questions from the service area?
No.
Gradually abandoned.
You didn't feel you were
We just wrap the action up. That's okay.
It was the comment at the start in regards to the number of events and activities led by the library service. The number was in.
It was 94.
Yes. And they was looking to arrange, you know, understand around the housing processes and also to include information on the housing process in the FAQ document they were creating. Comment share basic insurance that we're on top of arrangements for managing ourselves and other partnerships. And they would capture the council for that community helps. And council Pim's query about breakdown the numbers of the vulnerable groups that we help with accommodation. We would share about the numbers of the head council clarity on that.
Yes. Yeah.
And your commentary about seeing how the information would be captured with the medium-term financial plan savings.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'll come up with some this.
That might be one more feedback to finance, but obviously we do that.
I think it had some
Yeah. Is this?
And also your last comment shared about the SPG.
Yeah. Just for point of reference, HSG.
It was
Used to be SPG. Yeah, it's still my age now. Holding people granted, it used to be in here.
Since I just know if I see
Housing support grant, get in trouble for that.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
What the gist then?
Was there any other comment or recommendation?
No, I think it was everything. Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks everyone. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
see what else. Yeah.
Your last service area is not coming for. Just you doing my.
He's in the building, so
I think he's messaged me.
it's on his own. Okay.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
I think Councillor this is not that well.
Yeah. Yeah, and Councillor, he's come back. No. Yeah. Do you want to see how I kept to this time?
He's back with me.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, on to our final service area review for the midterms, which is good. So infrastructure is our last one. We haven't got the cabinet member, Councillor Ian Howells, present. Do you want to say anything, Ian, or do you want to hand straight over to Stephen?
Hiya. Yeah, I suppose, well, just a quick point really is that, you know, it's obviously it's a midterm report. It's a bit of a mixed picture, and just set in the context that, you know, infrastructure have to undertake a huge workload, talking about highways now rather, on a depreciating asset, you know, with a level of funds that can only target essential spend. But I think we'll probably cover an awful lot of that when we bring the highways asset management plan to scrutiny. And obviously, you know, balanced against that, there are a lot of, you know, really good news stories in the report as well. But I'll hand over to Stephen and Paul at this point, but I'm happy to take any questions anyone's got.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, just to conclude the intro, Chair, if that's okay. Speaking if you can report. So just to pick up on what we are responsible for within infrastructure, just for anyone who isn't sure, so we're responsible for that, for the maintenance of the highway assets, which includes carriageways, footway structures, streetlight data signals, highway drainage. We deliver road safety services and other initiatives, including education. We look after streetworks management, so we have staff undertakers like gas board, electricity board, to use all parlance. We provide consultancy services, both principally for works we carry out ourselves, but also for others within the authority. We provide public school and public transport. We provide fleet management services, which covers the entire authority. So we look after the fleet for others that would use us. Sylvia's been in earlier today, so we look after her fleet, for example. And we provide parking management services as well. So we also have the council civil contingencies function, mixing with the wider infrastructure department, indeed the wider council, in times of need, such as the last couple of again.
Busy 3 days.
Yes, so Gareth. So yeah, they've been very busy as well. So just pick up on the objectives. So we've got 4 objectives to support the corporate plan, including transforming highways, reducing carbon emissions, building climate resilience, alleviating flooding, and ensuring the council meets the requirements of the Civil Contingencies Act. First 2 quarters, we've been focused on delivering our statutory functions. For our program projects, we have 2 numbers, one red from a total of 9 indicators. For our performance indicators, 5 are reported in mid-year, and we're showing 2 amber related to our defects repair. So challenges include the council recruitment retention. As Councillor Howells just mentioned, then condition of the highway asset, active severe weather events just mentioned, then storm and direct. So positive this year, as Councillor Howells has mentioned, include progression of Bayside Bridge replacement design, some surface treatment carriageway works we've undertaken, works on active travel schemes up to tender, construction schemes at the moment, and continue work on electrifying the fleet. So looking forward to the remainder of the year, we'll continue our focus on performance and budget position. Right now, currently writing bids, which will be submitted to Welsh Government for funding streams that they invite us for, to secure funding to improve infrastructure from Newport next year as well as after this year. Probably what I need to say. Thanks,
Yeah, no, grateful for that, Stephen. Can I give you questions?
The one about parking. It doesn't relate directly. It's sort of an idea. Planning is obviously isn't within your portfolio. It's under somewhere else. But I'm getting. I think most of us who have planning applications made in our wards will be aware that we get quite a lot of applications for houses on multiple occupations. And it's always going to come up then about this, is there enough planning in the area? And then they commission private companies who I know from experience of reading these, some of them could be ranked in the fairy tale. You know, I think probably most of us would agree with that. And I'm just wondering if it's something which officers could take on as a paid facility, amenity, is actually that officers from the council could provide these parking surveys. You know, I'm sure we've got sufficient professionality to be impartial about it.
We do carry out some of our own if we're not happy, but I think we've got a regulatory function in that regard, so we wouldn't be able to do it for the applicants. But in terms of maybe explain that process a bit more, it's probably one for Tracy. A parking planning policy statement, isn't it, that we have to comply with? But I know, you know, I know there's been planned applications where someone's called in and we've gone to them in a review and said we're not happy. Yeah, I think Tracy will think a bit more.
Yeah, I think it's quite difficult really, because obviously we want, you know, council officers are very aware of the pressures for housing and for granting these places, but sometimes there is not far-fetched what's there when they commission an agent to produce these plans.
Also in your speech.
No, it's just that it might be a service that the LACO might want to consider doing.
It could be still maybe issues with speed of both, but certainly look into. I think one of the problems, perhaps in your one in particular, councillor, is a lot of the core policy will say it's close enough to the city centre and on a lot of bus routes, etc. So wouldn't necessarily require people then to have cars. However, you know, obviously the reality is
I'm only having doctors in the hospital here. They don't need cars.
But if the statement says that, then it doesn't even need someone to go around and do a service in order with no cars, does it? So some of the core bits will do that because
some of its policies. Yes, and you know, we're actually in comparison to lots of other local authorities have got sort of quite stringent sort of targets for car parking. We insist on more parking than lots of other local authorities do, particularly on new development or sort of changing use. So instead we're fairly sort of robust, to be honest.
I think that like the challenge is if you want to rank up, then someone would appeal that and say that's unreasonable, and then you fall back to allowing it. So
I think it's an unreasonable parking reports that they Okay, well,
to say that we do challenge, you know, if we don't feel that it's suitable, challenging and ask for further information.
I was going to say, I've seen examples where reports be put up, so there's this one car every 8 miles here. Highways have gone and said, no, you can't. You know, so I do know, you know, that process is happening. It may not happen to the degree that you'd like, but I think some of that.
I've had one this week that proudly announced it was a survey of the St Julian's area. Where obviously they're not very good at proofreading. That's about the kindest thing that you can say.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Malcolm will also know, you know, because we're on the planning committee, they are challenged. They do sort of bring other evidence to sort of counteract them. It's a fine balancing act, isn't it? Because, as you say, you know, what we're always told on planning committee in particular is, you know, if you say no on this, you're just subject to appeal and going to lose anyway and cost the authority a lot of money. So we end up sort of
like that.
And well, we end up sort of, you know, our hands tied quite a bit in terms of sort of those things. So it is a challenge.
And that is, isn't it? People, council, flexibility, officers and members. Okay, technically they make a decision, but it's not. It can't make any decision. It's quite constrained what we can actually.
Yeah, it's the SPGs that are the issue.
Well, as chair of licensing, I don't like my decisions like that. We have to do what is right, not what is.
To be honest, you know, we still do. And, you know, there's been a number of times where we, you know, disagreed with the officer's assessment and gone against that. So we will do that if we think that's what we do.
I shouldn't have mentioned anything to do with planning then, because I didn't realise you were planning.
Yeah, both of us are on the committee.
Right, okay.
The same point applies on the headcount of starters and leavers, so I'm not going to dwell on it now. Hopefully, you can just take that back.
They stay static.
They are 37, 37. So the point on check-ins, I, you know, here obviously it's more challenging for you
and Sylvia's area in terms of sort of having more staff mobile and out and about. And they are going in the right direction from sort of where they were at the start of the year. What sort of plans have you got to get them up and above the council?
Yeah, we have done a lot of work, and we've considered exactly the question punch raised chair about, you know, the nature of some of our colleagues. So we're ensuring that we have suitable interactions with those, but not necessarily the traditional check-in as is on the system. We comply with office-based staff. I think there have been some issues around people reporting, so check-ins are being done, but not being promised. Much as we've tried to deal with that over, you know, a number of months, it is still happening, but it's get to a less and less degree. There's been a, you know, really close focus on check-ins from myself, service managers within infrastructure over the last couple of months, and certainly performance over the last month is showing an improvement. We appreciate this year to date percentages,
and it's going in direction all the
Yeah.
way through. So yeah, fingers crossed it'll keep going.
Yeah,
At the end of the year. Yeah. I want to pick up a it's not directly on, but in terms of sort of the highways asset, and this is a question for the highways asset management plan. So there was a report which came out about 2 months ago, referring to my being on the planning committee, which suggested there's about £4 million worth of highways upgrade money in section 106 funding. It's just sort of sat in the section 106 pot and not being called. And I'm sure that lots of those are section 106 arrangements are specific to certain areas and can't only be spent on certain areas. But we must have identified a need for those upgrades in order to have asked for them as part of the 106. Lots of that money has been sat there for many years. What are we doing to try and sort of use that money to try and improve some of our assets?
We've had a room recently. Some of it isn't things. So some of it can be the start of a development, big development, and that bit is actually the end. But then it hangs around for long. It's got a lot of others, because I always look at it as things for like subsidising buses for 10 years, and naturally draws it down. So that the amount there to do stuff now isn't quite as big as that, but there's still more can be done.
Yeah, there's we are looking at and add to some of the things, also then some of them will be studies. So for example, there'll be a study of the junction potentially could be depending on occupation of particular house. Drawn and we're progressing one this year, which is a traffic calming scheme associated with development. So we are conscious of those and looking to focus on those over coming months, really, with balancing with pressures of construction. Very keen to do it because they, like you say, he's been identified.
It's very rare that any money for just general improve the highway in the area. They're normally very specific schemes. So you know, it's frustrating when you see the money there. Like,
I know,
pick off big demand on other stuff that you spend it on, but it's 6%.
Yeah. The moving traffic contraventions and bus lane enforcement, this is Welsh Government money, I presume, by the Burns delivery unit. Where is that going with that? Because that has been around for a little while now, hasn't it? That we could apply a year after, as I understand it, a year after we introduced civil enforcement on parking, we're entitled to apply to take over that aspect of road compliance. And it says here it's 20% on amber and then 25% on green. What's the when are we looking to go for that?
So in terms of the timing, it's not 1 year. It was 2 as guidance, but still not statutory. You could do it straight away.
Right.
But when we went to scrutiny at the time, we said we agreed to part principles. We'd take on the static offences first and wait the advisory period of 2 years before we then looked at the moving track fences. So it was always delayed through that process. The 2-year time come from COVID, just paused in all honesty, and stopped again. And then this was sort of picked back up again then as we come back out as the wider Burns work, because it's needed for that. So that was just a way of funding it, really.
So how is money going to be spent on that? Are we using electronic surveillance on things like traffic?
There's a process for applying for traffic offences, and one of the stages is the business case. So we're actually going through that process at the moment with business case being considered. It's effectively the same as sort of anyone scrutiny at the time. Administration, so somewhere here, it's that same process that we went through with scrutiny last time. Effectively, it's out.
Right. Okay.
But it would look at using camera technology. As part of any enforcement.
How do we procure that? Is it a sort of a procurement process where you look at several companies and who, or how do we actually go about that?
But assuming the business case determined that it's suitable and the financial picture is right, it would the camera equipment will be type approved, so it'll be a limited market, so it wouldn't just be an open tender. You'd have to ensure that the camera equipment is suitable and approved for that use, because it's got to be an evidential standard. General CCTV, which may not be up to that standard, so it would be an engagement with those companies and determine what equipment was needed.
Will it be monitored within the council, or will it be monitored possibly by a company who won a contract with the council over that?
We haven't got to that stage as yet. Options would be around potentially other councils who have got those powers at the moment and enforce themselves. We could look to join up with those number of options. A lot of it is ANPR. When we went through the previous scrutiny, it's not prejudged the scrutiny, there was a strong preference for things to be in-house. And so the civil partner enforcement delivered entirely in-house, with the exception of the back office functions, shared council services across South East Wales. Obviously, we'll take the input of the council at the time for that, but I would imagine that's a similar feedback. For the type of offences that you're looking at, moving traffic offences, things like bus lanes, but also Councillor still on them. A number of councillors got particularly around schools, issues around schools, so the school streets things, which we've but lots of girls saying we need to do more on the school streets. For that again, it is ANPR to approach, so it's not so much a person sat there going, "Oh, I know that." It's a clever.
I'd like to see a bit more of this action of the automatic camera recognition cameras.
And
that
so
way around, because I mean, my ward, we've got particular issues with prohibited heavy vehicles going through the estate, also speeding, and this has been established. We've got speeding humps, but there are certain commercial companies who actually take a positive delight in ramping up the speed before the hump and then crashing their loads and vehicles obviously that they don't own down over the humps.
Again, we wouldn't have powers for speeding, but those remain police enforceable.
From what I've read about this, just having your number plate flash up is a considerable deterrent. Even if this doesn't go anywhere, I shouldn't say that on the public recording, should I?
I think you're right.
But it's because nobody actually knows whether they're going to be pursued on that one or not, and they'll modify their behaviour.
I didn't you catch what you said about weight limits then? Well, let's stay with the
that'd be with the track fence. So we
that'd be really. That's something really struggling to get the fix to do anything about.
How do I make an application to have it enforced on non-bank?
We haven't got those powers yet, so we can't enforce it yet. Once you apply for the powers, then you can do that. So
what's the powers?
So the process.
Isn't that a state adoption, road adoption on one bank by any chance? I'm still waiting for that one.
So in the same way when we're civil department enforcement, technically, I think it requires it's an addendum to an act of parliament at this stage. But so that goes in. Goes to Welsh government, or is it UK government? I think it's Welsh government.
Welsh government.
They stuff in it, and it comes back. Once it is, then those issues, and I know because we get lobbied by lots of councillors all across on similar issues, they'll give us more powers to look at them. Because, like you said, yes, the police have powers in these areas. However, we've got to be realistic is that they are, and so it allows us to deal with that. The school streets is the one, weight limits is the other one. So we're often left saying it's not much we can do.
So when would we be in a position to apply for those powers? Then is that tied up with my previous question?
That's what that. That is.
That's right. Didn't realise it came into that as well.
So is that a full council decision or is that a cabinet decision?
It may be full council.
Well, we'll have to check and get back to
So
you.
there'll be a timeline of sort of consultation presumably with the public and then scrutiny and then
Yeah.
whatever the decision is
Yeah.
of the capital council. Yeah, that's
It-
fine.
As far as I understand, it mirrors the process went for the first lot.
Yeah.
Do we have a substantial backlog of these occasions where we need to hold consultations? I've had quite a long-standing thing now, which just seems to be going on forever, on Tunnel Terrace, Windsor Terrace down there about parking on the pavements, and we need a review of the traffic orders on that bit of road. And I think it really does need some extra yellow lines bringing in, because we've had situations there where the service vehicles can't get down there, which is just ridiculous because of mindless parking.
So on road traffic orders, we do them in batches because the main cost is actually the advertising.
Yeah.
And there's a statutory process they have to be
Yeah.
advertising them.
Yeah.
Money.
So have we got a
because-
backlog?
Because it's not because the backlog. It's because there's only so much money in the budget. I think we do it twice a year, is it? Or
It's about 2 months ago.
yeah. So it'll be on the next lot that come through. So it's not that there's a delay in consultation. It's just how we're splitting that budget to be as effective as possible. Otherwise,
Right, I'm just wondering when I can tell my constituents in that area, you know, that something is going to happen.
Likely timeline.
We can feedback, but we do get a lot of requests.
Well, you've had quite a few from me. I mean, I'm looking now, we're well over the 2-year mark. And there's,
It could be they've decided it's not needed, so perhaps you could feed.
well, I
back
haven't,
to
yeah, but I
that.
haven't been informed that it's not needed. The last I had was we'll be going to we have to go through the process of consultation with residents.
We definitely pick that one up, and that's right to be taught.
You've taken it through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so that was, I'd be very grateful for that one, thank you.
In terms of just on the sort of the bus bays and that sort of thing, moving traffic and fences, we have a number of bus bays in the city that are not permanent bus bays. You know, the 7:30 till 10 and 3:30 till 6:30, most of them. So is there a plan to change that, or will the cameras be clever enough to know that they are only violated between 7 and 10 or 3:30 and 6:30?
So those cameras can work on any one setting like that. Because similarly, like camera car and also when you really ticket, you've got single yellow lines or you've got single blips or double blips. So it knows when in the loading pick, the computer can only take it within the correct zones. So if there's any change in any traffic order, those still need to be processed separately. So those go to consultation. So say you want so you want to stick some double yellow lines down somewhere, you want to build bus lane, that still have to go up to a separate RTO. This is immediately transferring the powers, police have some bits over to us.
So one of the things that sort of people raise here all the time is they don't understand the bus lane system. So about 15 years ago, I was pulled over by the police for driving in the bus lane.
You were the last person pulled over.
Probably, and I was in there at the time you were allowed to be in there. And the police officer didn't understand that it's only a bus lane between 7 and 10. Is there some awareness raising we can do? Because Town Bridge is a prime example. You just get traffic backed up all the way into Clarence Place. And when it's not a bus lane, and people just don't drive in it because they think it's a permanent bus lane.
No, I thought that was a permanent.
No, it's not. It's not.
Oh, isn't it?
It's not. That's simply.
Well, actually, the signage isn't very good.
Biggest frustration.
I've been in a position where I'm not in the bus lane. I know I can go in the bus lane. It's completely clear. I'm thinking, I don't want people to see me in the bus lane because they'll make the wrong. So yeah.
People also will have a go at you for driving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder whether there's some awareness raising.
Yeah.
The signs are really small.
But it is. But people just don't. People see
It's
bus
not,
lane.
it's not written on.
It's all written on signs.
It's all written on signs.
Yeah. Well, there's no one's actually.
I think
today. Maybe we need to.
We've only got 2
paint on the.
Can we get bigger signs, Chair?
Yeah, it doesn't need.
Can we get bigger signs?
They're rigged in terms of the sign.
I'm sure
But
that they.
I don't know what. I have seen some places where they have some sort of flashing.
Yeah.
lights.
I think it would be useful to have a look at. I mean, you know, I wonder whether sort of raising awareness of the bus lane on Town Bridge might reduce the need to spend 60 million quid on on changing the roundabout to traffic lights, to be perfectly honest with you, but there you go, that's another story.
Yeah, I mean, Cardiff have got fixed times, haven't they?
Yeah.
They're very hot. They're very aggressive on.
Yeah, majority of us like in Cardiff do.
Yeah, and they're permanent. But we're
Yeah,
not
it's the
here.
ones
We've
that
got
tend-
variable ones, haven't we? I know we've got variable ones, but like you, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I do. To my detriment.
I had a question earlier on, which I was told that I needed to come to this
Yes,
meeting.
English, yeah.
And it was actually about, I'm sure this would be here. They would be raising this, a 50+ forum asked a question about a bus service. I know that Newport City Transport is something else, right? But a bus service over to the velodrome, because although the bus service does go down towards Spitty, and the core reason, the many, and particularly older people, may have mobility issues arising, or they've got exercise referral issues. So they're going there for a specific reason, but it's difficult for them to access it because of public transport going over there.
We were talking about the access into Lisbon in particular, and as we looked at before, I don't know whether there's any progress on active travel or additional bus entry they got to. Yeah, need to consider that. Okay.
Something I could pick up for you and come back to.
Sorry?
Something I could pick up for you and come back to.
Thank you.
In terms
Thank
of,
you.
potential for it. But obviously, the bus services in Newport, as you know, engage with
It's not the service itself, it's the access and being able to put, so there's plenty of buses that run that loop.
Well, people
We were
don't
looking-
understand what the reason
Yeah,
is.
so we were looking at, where could it go? Because effectively it goes up and past it, and it's quite a walk around.
Yeah.
It gets tantalising close.
Well, it drops off sort of outside the car place, where the car place is before the turn. And then it does, the one that comes over, it does loop around and go down the industrial estate, come round there by Lyson Village. So there's a bus that literally goes right the way around it, but the bus points are quite far away from the actual sports village, which are further in. But I'm not sure whether you'll get one to go all the way in, because it's a bit of a tricky in and out.
It is, we did have a look at trying to amend something.
So it's actually the road angle, is it, or the deceleration lane or something?
No, it's we need to have I think when we looked at this before, we wanted to take a small entrance in off that side and have it be able to come back out. But but whether that was not viable for some reason, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think it particularly, the buses are doing that loop. I get, doing that extra loop. Yeah. So it's more an infrastructure issue per se than
Right. It's been particularly on people's minds since the closure of the Newport Leisure Centre, because more people, we've obviously got a different provision, there's a different offer now in the station gym. And some of the classes moved over to the velodrome, so it is something that's come up more. It's probably second favourite topic beside public toilets. You do public toilets in your
No, you've missed your chance for that.
Can I just say on that? Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, of course you can, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I wasn't actually aware of that issue of there not being a convenient bus stop for the velodrome, and that's definitely something that I think we should have a look at and take away. I mean, what I have noticed is just in terms of driving there, I don't even think it's very well signposted, considering it's, such a major facility for Newport. Every time I've been, even though I've been quite a few times now, I wonder if I've taken the wrong turn, because it's such a kind of tiny little sign and it looks like you're going into some sort of backwater industrial estate, but actually that is the main entrance to the velodrome. So I think there's a few things that actually need to be looked at in terms of accessing the velodrome.
Yeah,
the road is very narrow as well, isn't it?
But Rhiann, in the summer when the leaves are on the trees, the sign can be completely hidden behind a tree down there. So there needs to be a bit of awareness on that one, I think, and we probably do need.
That's madness, isn't it? Yeah, we should sort that out, definitely.
I think that's what to take away, I presume. Yeah. Just while we're on that subject, and I haven't mentioned here as well. So, the bus shelters, there is a budget for bus shelters as such. So is that a sort of something which the cabinet can be lobbied to sort of get a budget for? Because I was told they're about £8,000 to sort of put a bus shelter in, which isn't a lot of money.
I think it's a tab. I think that's the cost of purchase. Then somebody needs to dig a hole.
Right, okay.
So
So that's the shelter then, these groundworks.
and it needs groundwork. Something like something needs moving in the ground. But yes, obviously, capital is limited, isn't it? And you know, by far the large amount of our capital goes into schools, and they're obviously massively more expensive than bus shelters. So you don't get any bus shelters for that. We've applied in the last 3 years for Welsh Government local transport funding.
That's what I was going to ask you, whether there's any funding.
So last year we didn't get any. Obviously, the previous 2 years we did, and we had quite. I may not feel like this, but compared to the previous 10 years, we had quite a big improvement across the network. However, there's more to do. We're applying again this year. Yeah. So this is the Steve mentioned round of grant applications. Now that will go in for this year, but obviously we don't know yet.
Yeah. Can I also just add? Oh, sorry, Mark.
Sorry,
Yeah.
So is there a review of bus provision of I mentioned to you before, the bus stops, official bus stop with no bus stop sign or a bus stop or on the actual bus stop, but it's an official bus stop. You said there was going to be a review of, is that correct? Something?
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe Stephen, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but Alistair Hopkins' team, I think, are undertaking a wholesale review of what bus stops there are or should be and where they're missing whatever the word is, bus stop equipment. And that is actively ongoing. And bus shelters and bus stops are things that we've been very actively talking about in the last month or two.
I think the one is directly opposite the new 911 building that's going on in Ringland.
Okay.
It's directly opposite there.
Yeah. So you're talking. So as Cameron was talking about is effectively bus shelters, but also the flags, as we call them. They're called flags, which is the official bus stop. It could often be a post.
Nothing there.
So a review is being done on that to make sure that all are suitable for that. But again, it has been historic. It's an area that didn't have funding for a very long time. So
people get on and others don't know it's actually a bus stop, and then go across the road. There's no bus shelter there. They've got the development going on. They've taken out the shelter.
That may be because it's a temporary setup there, which we can have a look at. Should be addition.
There's one temporary, but then the other one has been there for years. Nothing's ever been done.
It's an important area, isn't it?
That's been picked up in the review, but we'll have a look at that one specifically.
So I made a request to Stephen for a new bus stop a couple of months ago now, because the children get picked up there for the faith schools, and lots of parents have contacted me and said the kids are stood up against some kid waiting for the bus when it's happening. It's on the outside Lyson Village. So it would be really good, cabinet member, if that one could be considered if we do get some fund in there, because both the faith schools, the Welsh medium school and the faith schools go across to St Joseph's and somewhere else. Plus the Welsh medium schools all pick up from that bus stop. And I literally go out there some mornings, and the parents are trying to just keep the kids in the car, which is causing havoc on a busy stretch of road anyway because it's hammering down the rain.
There's enough space there.
There's more than enough space there because there was a bit of an issue with the developer pinching some land. Sort of get back. So there's that space now. It's soft landscape at the moment, so it's easy to do.
Well, we certainly have a look at it. I would say, obviously, the issue being we've got to replace this because some of them have been in a terrible state for a long time. So, I think certainly.
And it's also the other issue is Welsh Government are going to change the way they fund this sort of thing, and we're sort of still waiting to see how that all plays out for next year. So it creates a bit of uncertainty for us as well, doesn't it, in terms of knowing what we're going to be able to get from them. And
that's an interesting point. We perhaps we ought to think about, we have priority policy on this. What is priority to have and what isn't to have around sort of, where vulnerable users might frequent more or, you know, so perhaps we ought to think about that and have a sort of ones that are damaged and replaced, or new ones and that sort of thing. And maybe it's when you also pick up as part of the sort of section 106 new developments and stuff as well. If you know, it's community infrastructure as well. So
I think probably for that development, we looked at the boat.
Absolutely,
I suspect there may have been one there, and they've been argued away, whatever, because it's the case with a lot of these sort of things. But that's definitely something to pick up. I think in terms of where we've been replacing the bus shelters, we did prioritise on, I think, on demographic and also on frequency of use, so that we try to get the most bang for the buck. But there's no perfect way to do it, but we'll take that point forward as well.
But we should look at things like how to prioritise, and we look at things like, you know, feeder routes into other routes and that. Yeah, so that's really common part of our thoughts this year.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any other questions? Lovely job. Okay, just to wrap up the recommendations.
Vice Chair, your comment about clarity on the headcount.
Yeah.
Again, so the information of the moving and traffic contraventions, so is it clarity on whether it's a cabinet or council full decision?
Yes.
We'll say we'll be the decision process on that.
Councillor Thomas's comment on the consultation on double yellow lines, you want clarity on.
Yeah. I think it's that's very specific.
On consultation.
It was Tunnel Terrace, wasn't it?
Yes, it's Tunnel Terrace, but specifically Windsor Terrace.
Windsor Terrace,
which I
Tunnel
was
Terrace.
actually told would be considered in the same tranche.
Get back to
And there will be and also Clifford Crescent. Well, no, it just joins two parallel roads, if you like, or roughly parallel.
We'll feedback on the ones we got. If there's any you're not sure about, come back to.
Thank you.
You give feedback to Councillor Thomas direct. The rest of the committee don't need that. That's fine. Is that all right?
That's fine.
And your comment about possible raising awareness on the temporary bus lanes.
Yeah.
And also the query the Councillor Thomas is about the access
to the
village. There's in progress an additional access point for it.
Yeah.
From that, was there any comments, recommendations the committee would like to make in regards to the report?
And look at the bus stop provisions.
The priority.
Yes, your bus stop provision over at the
Yeah.
the wellbeing centre, health and wellbeing centre. Wellbeing centre, isn't it?
Just yes.
No, Councillor was also talking about the bus shelter opposite.
Oh, sorry.
The
Sorry.
bit opposite, isn't it?
Apologies. Yeah.
That's opposite.
The couple, yeah.
The new
Yeah,
house,
the new house.
nice hill.
Direction.
On a team's hills, yeah.
I know what you.
Apologies. I don't know this.
Because that will be very, hopefully that'll be very well used.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah.
It's not
Bringing
just
a lot of
the
services together.
It was 30% of the parking is taken off to allow for public transport, and they can ride their bike and what have you.
Yeah.
But they got a bus stop. There's no bus stop, no shelter, no sign.
Secret bus stop, only for those in the know.
And my wife is going up the wall.
That's one way to. It's one way to take the pressure off the NHS, isn't it?
They're not hiding the sign.
Okay. Right, thanks both. Thanks for your time. I think the highways asset management plan's coming in February.
Yeah, it should be as soon as, I think that, you know, that has been delayed.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, the sooner we can get it shared, the better, to be honest with you. That's fine. Yeah, it's ready to go. We put an extra date in February. We couldn't really fit it in January because of the budget.
Yeah.
So we put one in for February and then one in for March for the housing. Yeah. Super. Thanks, both. Thank you. Good job. Grateful for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Ian.
Oh, can I catch up with you about the meeting?
It's your show.
Yeah, yeah, I'm just going out of my office, so.
It's just a scrutiny advice for the Finance Chair, just to update, just waiting for comments from David and Mike from the last service area plans.
Yeah.
As we said, for the next meetings, there's going to be the budget. We're trying something different this time around. We're splitting up the police and the corporate directorate budget proposals. So at the moment, on the 16th of January, we'll be looking at the police budget proposals. On the 16th, and then on the 22nd of January, we'll be looking at the corporate proposals. So it depends on the proposals we
It's
get.
okay to be, I mean, you know,
I mean,
we're heading towards 4 hours here, aren't we?
yeah, the cabinet, and that's why we tried to split them to
Is this a
time.
lot?
What I would encourage everybody to do, you know, the last cabinet report, there were a number of early savings proposals they proposed and delegated powers by officers.
Yeah.
Last time we ended up delving into a lot of the detail of those, which we couldn't particularly influence anyway. And our role really in the consultation is probably more the cabinet decisions and giving our feedback to cabinet about the decisions they make rather than the officers' ones. So I would encourage everyone to look at that cabinet report and the one that comes out now in December next week. Oh, tomorrow? No, when's cabinet? Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow, I think.
Yeah.
It isn't, it's,
I think there might be some more information in the cabinet papers tomorrow. I haven't looked at the dates yet.
There's an agenda tomorrow, I think, but there's one we're waiting on the date for in January, which should.
so they're not going to be doing the budget. They're not.
I haven't seen the papers,
When's the
but I know
announcement?
this.
The funding
Yeah.
announcement.
It's normally
isn't it?
15th.
Tomorrow.
But what my point is, please have a look and
Yeah.
respond to those ones, you know, in the general consultation, so that we're kind of focusing our time on the decisions that cabinet, the council will be making about budget cuts,
Yeah.
rather than the officers. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then we can hopefully sort of focus our time on what we need to have a say on and report back to cabinet on it. If everyone's okay with that.
This is, well, I've been on scrutiny groups for a long time and that one as well. And these meetings are longer than anything else I've ever sat on.
You're not looking forward to them, are you, Kate?
Sorry?
You're not looking forward to them, are you?
I'm just commenting. You know,
No, I'm not either.
I mean, yeah.
Steve isn't you?
We probably should have had a break in the middle, but it's a long,
Yeah.
it's a long session, these are. You know, we're 3.5 hours now.
Mm.
I mean, you've
Do you
got
think
the
it-
option to move these over 2 days and do 2 service areas, but
Well, I mean, we've still got.
you're
2
then
months,
taking
haven't
you
we?
up another
We've
time. So.
already got 2 months. So that's potentially probably, you know, 7 or 8 hours a month
Yeah,
that we're spending on this, plus the home reading time.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, you know, I don't, you know, Chair, you've got an extra meeting on it.
Yeah.
And even more time on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the equivalent of a part-time job for you. It's this long.
Well, yeah, it is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, Alex's suggestion last time about sort of splitting the agenda items worked really well today, so, yeah, we'll
I think
carry that.
I think it only worked well though, Chair, because my brother wasn't here and Chris. I think we would have overlapped. Definitely, we'd still be going till about 7 o'clock.
Yeah, I
Well,
think, you know,
if
if,
my brother was here.
That's a bit
if
cruel,
nothing
Alex.
else,
I don't. Sorry, I don't. Just
if
being
nothing
honest.
else, it did save the officers some time though, didn't it? It did save people some time, they only took,
Yeah.
you know, for Steve, an example.
No, I
would have been sat here for
no,
3
I
hours reading the
agree.
last bit.
I agree. We don't want our officers wasting the precious
Sorry.
resource.
Yeah.
that they-
Exactly, yeah, so, yeah, really good suggestion that.
Yeah.
Okay, meeting closed, yeah, everyone happy?
Before we go, can I check